Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Sportsball Podcast, your source for sports, and officially, unofficially, the number one sports podcast in the world. Don't fact check it, it's for real. I'm your host this week, Zach, and I'm here with my boy Andy and Nate once again. Actually, you know what? This time we'll be honest. He works overnights, so scheduling is hard.
He hates us. That's what I'm going with, and I will accept no other questions at this time about it.
That seems fair. All right, so that's what we're going with. He hates us, and it's just officially the way it is. So
and I know he's going to listen to this and then immediately text us, and I will be prepared for what he says, but I will not be, because I'm sure it'll be something witty and maybe stupid.
We're just going to ignore that part. So anyway, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are here for another week of your weekly dose of sports. I would love to talk about this daily, but
I was going to say,
I don't know if we're that good. I don't know.
It's called like a radio show at that point.
That'd be fun. But anyway, since Nate is not here this week, we have once again a returning star. I don't know. I have no official read on if this was official fan favorite, but we brought my younger brother Jett back. So
what up, party people?
Welcome back to the podcast, sir.
I'm happy to be back.
So we might as well start with probably I don't know about the hottest news, but definitely some of the most exciting sports news in memory. Got to be talking about the Dodgers being up 2-0 over the Yankees, which everybody definitely expected, right?
Considering that my pick was Yankees in 6, Nate's was Yankees in 7, and yours was Dodgers in 7. No, I don't think 2-0 right now would have been my guess. At least I would have thought 1-1.
I am gonna be honest. I feel like I also followed that up with, though, like, we're gonna look like a bunch of fools when somebody takes it like 4-0.
Absolutely.
Didn't I say something like that?
Yes.
So
yes,
there you
that was immediately after you said that. After we said our picks, and you're like, "Well, there's someone's gonna win 4-0 then."
So what we found out. This is kind of a spoiler before we get to our pick segment at the end, but we did some. We went back and listened to some of our picks from before, and we found out that if you're actually using our picks for betting, one, don't do that. But two, fade us very hard, especially me. Any pick that I make, definitely do the opposite, because it's official at this point that every pick I've made has been terrible. So who knows?
We'll go over those at the end of the pod, so you know just how terribly.
We'll try again.
Yeah, we'll try. We're for sure going to give you winners. Don't let us astray. We did win some last week, but
I did not. I did not. Well, let's be honest. I did not.
No, you did not, and we'll figure that out in a second.
But anyway, so the Los Angeles Dodgers are up 2-0 over the New York Yankees, which again I think is probably more surprising to people. Game 1 going off of Freddie Freeman walk-off grand slam, which is just incredible.
Bonkers.
I don't care if you're not a fan of the teams at all. I get it, but on the flip side, like, you can't get much more. The only way that could have been any cooler is if it was like a Game 7 to win the World Series situation. That would have been about the only way that you can say that's like the most perfect play in baseball. Right. But at that point, still really cool. And also, I think probably, again, fade my picks. But if I were to make a judgment call, this seems to me like that's the type of play that really spurs the team on to be like, oh, hey, this is what we're good enough to do this. We got close, but we're good enough to do this. Judging by the fact that they won 2-0, or they won the second game pretty handedly, even with the potential of Shohei Ohtani getting hurt. So
yes, he is back.
He is, he's playing tonight. As of this recording, we're not watching it, but we're keeping up with Game 3. So who knows how long this will go, but could be breaking news at the end of this.
Yeah, we'll see.
I need to stop. I need to stop calling it breaking news because it's not how that works.
It's breaking
It's
news
not-
to us.
It is not
Yeah, it
breaking
does.
news when people hear this. So, anyway, I've spoken long enough. You guys got any hot MLB takes for anything that's going on lately?
No, I mean, I guess I've stuck to my word. I have not watched the look of it unless it's been on my Twitter timeline. Definitely when the whole Freddie Freeman walk off, I mean, everybody was just like, "Oh my God, yes!" And I mean, it was a really cool walk off. And I mean, just to have that kind of moment in a World Series, especially a walk off Grand Slam, too, is you don't want to give very many opportunities for a Grand Slam, but to do it in the World Series as a walk off too is pretty spectacular. But no, I may have overestimated the Yankees bullpen a little bit and underestimated the Dodgers offensive power. I probably should have seen it coming, especially with how many runs they did put up on the Mets and the Padres in those series. So yeah, probably should have changed my pick to like Dodgers at 5 or 6 or something like that. But regardless,
I could be wrong, and I guess correct me if you can, Andy. Is I could have sworn though that the argument for the Dodgers at that point was because that the Padres and the Mets had not necessarily bad bullpens, but just weaker bullpens.
yes.
So
Yes.
like they were like the Yankees will be the true test at this point for
Correct.
them.
Correct. And it still very much could. I mean, that's, as we know in baseball, it's literally one game at a time and the whole series can flip on, a game or two. I mean, definitely in New York, I mean, the Dodgers as of right now are up 2-0. In game 3 when Freddie Freeman hit a 2-run shot in the top of the first. So it's not looking bleak, but I mean, it is looking bleak for New York, but not if you're a Dodgers fan. So anything can happen in baseball, and it's literally 3 outs in the top of the ninth. I mean, you could score 3 runs just based off that, but baseball's weird and fickle, but it's the Dodgers are good. That's
All I
what I'll
know,
say.
all I know is I feel like such a fool for not getting into baseball sooner. But it's gonna. I'm telling you right now. I know I said that at the beginning of the year this year. That is going to change next year. I'm not going to necessarily watch every single game,
Mhm.
but I am going to keep up. Try to learn more about it. So, Jett, what you
Yeah.
got? And if you got anything.
I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat with both of y'all. I didn't watch the fucking World Series, or I didn't watch the home run live, but I saw it on Instagram. So I mean, it was cool. His bat flip was baller as shit. Like, it was pretty cool. Very very cool atmosphere, and I wish I did watch that game, but unfortunately, like, I just haven't tuned into it. So I need to. I'm kind of with Zach in that point too. Like, next year, I plan on watching it more. But other than that, like, go Dodgers, because fuck the Yankees, you know? So like, that's all I could really say about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's kind of where we're all at right now is go Dodgers, and that's really about it.
Ooh, that was
All you
cool.
gotta say, if we're being real.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not a fiber in my being that's ever gonna cheer for the Yankees in any capacity whatsoever.
I don't know much
Which makes
about
sense
baseball,
as
but
a
fuck the Yankees.
As a Red Sox fan, yeah, that
yeah,
would
as
go
a Red
against
that makes
all
total
of my
sense.
morals.
Red Sox, huh? All right.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Just
Well,
kidding.
we'll keep all the folks up to date. When is actually game 4? Because there's going to obviously be a game 4. When does that happen?
Oh, I feel like the World Series does every other night, despite them being in the same town now. Game 4 is tomorrow. So
So it's
Tuesday.
just straight up. So if the Dodgers win tonight, there is a potential that come
Oh, so
tomorrow, the
it's
Dodgers could be.
yes, it's game 3 is right now. Game 4 is Tuesday. Game 5 is Wednesday since they're in New York. And then
Yep.
game 6 and 7 would be Friday and Saturday back in LA if they make it there.
Dang.
So
Dang.
I mean, the Dodgers, in a sense, have home field advantage since they are the team with the 4 home games in that series. But they might not make it back to LA either.
Yeah.
So
All right, well,
that's your lineup. So by the time this comes out, the Dodgers may have won the World Series, or
God, that's crazy to think.
or there's going to be a Game 6 on Friday.
Oh man. Well, then at that point, if there is a game 6 on Friday, at least one of our predictions will probably at that point come correct. So
either the Dodgers or Yankees in 6.
So
one of them will be right.
Hopefully. All right. Moving on. So sorry for MLB fans. If you're big into MLB, if there's a lot more to talk about than that, but we've just been admittedly bad about keeping up with it other than the scores and the highlights. However, we're going to move on to, I'm still calling this a fairly new segment because I think outside of Andy, at least I know Jett and I are fairly new to the sport and everything, but we're finding a lot of excitement in it. It's the NHL. So you know what? With that, I'm going to let Jett take the floor because his team is, as of right now, one of the best in the NHL. And he's absolutely got some stuff to talk about. I'm sure, at least.
I mean,
gotta have something.
I mean, yeah. Last time I was on here, I said I'm cheering on for the Jets, and that was the best decision I've ever made in my life. They're starting off undefeated, which is the best start that they have had ever, from what I've read. So, we played the Flames. Was that yesterday? Maybe 2 days ago. I actually did tune into that game, and it was honestly one of the best games I've watched. It was 3-3 all the way up to the third period, and then the Jets in the last 3 minutes took over with a crazy goal. It bounced off the back glass back towards the goalie, bounced off his back into the goal. I was flipping shit. And that, I think that's what cemented me into hockey. That right there is like, okay, I think I fuck with this sport heavy. So the Jets, I don't know who they got next to be. Oh, wait, no, they're playing Toronto tonight, actually.
Yep.
They're playing live.
Do you want the update on that, by the way?
Sure, I'll take it.
Toronto is up 4-1 right now.
4-1. What period?
Second. Middle of the second. So,
all right, I ain't gonna worry yet because from what I've seen, we're a third period team. Like for some reason that third period comes in, they're like, all right, let's play the fucking game now. So like, I can respect it. I'm happy with the Jets. I hope we go to 9-0. Sounds kind of like not gonna happen right now, but still happy with how we're going. I'm glad I picked the team that I did. So
third period team.
Yeah. That's all I can say. Third period team.
Well, sorry, I didn't want to cut you off if you had any more, I guess.
I really didn't. I was happy with how they played against the Flames, and yeah, that's
okay.
all I can say.
Not to give our listeners mad whiplash, but we're just going to go to, as of last week's episode, one of the worst teams in the NHL, my Nashville Predators. And they've turned it around a little bit. They are currently on a 3-win streak. They finally picked up that first win against, who was that? The game that I for sure remember was the one against the Blackhawks because that's the one I bet was like, that's going to be the one. But no, the Predators, I'm not going to say they're turning around yet. The Bruins, that one. They shut out the Boston Bruins, which was a fantastic game to watch. As it was weird because even for it was a 4-0 knockout for them. They shut them out. They shut out Boston. It was weird because for a shutout in an NHL game, you don't generally come with the idea of it being a sloppy game, and yet it really was. It just was one of those games. As I was watching, I was like, I just, and I know it's like the beginning of the season. So like as all the teams play some more games and things get together, especially for the Predators with the new players they got, it's going to be once they gel. And I've been reading some online forums and stuff with the Predators for people that are way more into this and know more about the team history and stuff. People have said, like professionals have said, you got to give them like 15 to 20 games for that unit to really, those units to really start to meld together and be good. So I think we're finally seeing it. Rough start for the beginning of the year, but 3-win streak, something to build on. Currently playing against the Lightning in Tampa Bay. Down 2-1 as of this recording in the middle of the second period. But I don't know. They look like they're coming on. This is a big game right now as of this one, just because Steven Stamkos, who is now on the Predators, he used to play for the Lightning. I think that's the only team he's played on up until he got traded to the Predators. So yeah, I think things are looking up. They've had the last couple wins that they got against the Blackhawks and then the Blue Jackets, scrappy wins. I believe the one against the Blue Jackets was an overtime win too. Yes, it was. And so that one was really fun. That was really cool to watch. Very exciting. So yeah, I guess the biggest addition I think that's been the positive push for them has been Zach LaRue or however you say his name. He's like, they brought him in from their development league, and he hasn't necessarily played the best by NHL standards, but he's played really well for the position he was put in. So I think it's been fun to watch him play and come in and really make an impact. So I don't know. As much as Jett's like, oh, hey, like this is a great decision to pick the Winnipeg Jets. Like, I'm sitting here like, maybe I should have done that too. But I'm also like,
hey, we're taking new fans every day. You know,
Nashville,
if you join the side.
At this point, all I'm finding out is it's similar to, like, I have teams that I cheer for in every sport, but you know, I have teams that I appreciate and that I like a little bit more, but I just like good sport. And NHL so far has proven a lot of good sport. So with that, I'll give it to Andy.
Yeah. So last time that we had talked, we are discussing how bad the goalie play for the Avs was. And at that time, yeah, they were on a little bit of a win streak, but they were, I think, 2-4, maybe last time that we had talked. That has now turned into a 5-game win streak for the Avs. Started out 0-4 and now 5-0. Or not, well, 5-0 in this streak, but 5-4 total. And that is mostly due to they kind of went with Antonin, I think is how you say, the Avs backup goalie over Georgiev, and he's done fairly well so far. Like we had talked about, it's great to have the top, points leaders, top 3 of the 5 points leaders in the NHL, because that means you're scoring a lot, or you're getting a lot of points. But when you have your starting goalie be one of the bottom 2 goalies in the league, there's a vast difference that you have to cover. So it's like, yeah, you can score 5 goals a game, but if you're letting up 6, it doesn't matter on the score sheet at the end of the game. So they went to their backup. He's played super well. I said this on this little 5-game win streak. I know tonight they're starting Georgiev back again against the Blackhawks, and they're just coming off a back-to-back game. So it might be more of a rest issue rather than, going back to Georgiev type thing. And if he does bad tonight, they might put back Antonin back in. But yeah, it's been more enjoyable hockey to watch for the Avs once they've kind of start to figure it out. And I think I saw the stat like the last time they started a season like 0-3, 0-4 was the 2021 year where they won the Stanley Cup. So, good omen, bad omen. We'll see as time goes forward, but a good start that they have finally started to figure out that they can win games again, just by making a simple goalie change. Weird, I know, but
which to the point for at least the Predators in that sense, they actually with Wedgwood, I can't remember his first name. I think Steven.
Mm-hmm.
He came in and played against the Blue Jackets and had massive saves. So it's interesting how it takes maybe 1 or 2 players. It's just that little
mm-hmm.
thing, and that's the cool thing about hockey is that it's, to me at least so far, off the little that I know, is just how like these little changes. Because the other crazy thing is I'm still learning about like the rotations that they have. So like they'll put like the little timer at the bottom, or at least
the lines,
the lines. There you go, where they'll be like, "Oh, they've been on the ice for a minute and a half," and like that's a long time. But then I'm sitting there, I'm like, "Is it?" But like, I obviously don't play in the NHL, but like,
it is the hockey, I guess.
I mean, I think these guys are going balls to the wall basically for a minute and a half. So it's like they rotate them out just quick. It's really cool, but I'm like, I don't quite understand it. I just need to figure it out more. I get the idea, but it's interesting to me how that little tweaks like that are all it really takes.
Yeah.
It's very, very minute. Nah, I shouldn't say minute changes, but very little things like that.
Right. So yeah, it's been fun as we talked about. San Jose is now the worst team since it's not the Preds anymore. They were the worst team last year because I think they had the number 1 overall pick, so they're definitely shooting for that lottery pick again. Well on track to do it. But yeah, congrats to Jets team for being undefeated so far. Might not last after tonight, but it's still an 8-0 start is incredible in hockey. I mean, it's especially you watch any hockey game, it doesn't matter how good you are. It's not like the NFL.
You're
or
officially right, by the way, Andy. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. The first pick did go officially to the San Jose Sharks.
Yeah.
So we were actually discussing that beforehand.
So hockey is it's weird in the sense of in the NFL, it's like, you have the Chiefs, you have the Ravens, you have the Lions, and then you have your inferior teams like the Giants, Panthers, so on and so forth. And you do kind of have that in hockey, but at the same time, it's like hockey feels so much different of a sport that San Jose could go out against the Jets and San Jose could walk away with a 4-3 win. I mean, it's just like hockey. It's an even match and it's not even match at the same time to where anybody can win on any given night, regardless of what your record is and how good you are. And that it is the same in the NFL as a comparison, but it's not as common in the NFL as it is in hockey type things. So, but I don't expect San Jose to pick it up anytime soon. So they might be gunning for a lottery pick again, despite being 7 games in to their season.
Next year's their year. Trust.
Yes, just get another number 1 pick, and
that'll be the trick.
Yeah, that'll be the trick. Keep taking again.
I mean, I can't say that this is not. And again, it goes to the point of how much I don't know about hockey. But Connor Bedard has looked really good on the Chicago Blackhawks, and they're still not very. I understand saying this as a Predators fan for a lot of NHL fans are very or they're going to be like, hey, hold on now, who are you cheering for? But the Predators are officially not the worst team in the NHL, so I feel like I have a little bit of pull here to say this.
Mm-hmm.
But the Blackhawks are officially below, at least in terms of points, underneath the Predators. So
yeah,
but Connor Bedard still looks good. So to the point, it's like they have good players. It's just whether it's the coaching, whether it's the lines, whatever it is, there's something that's not working for them.
Mm-hmm.
Same with the San Jose Sharks. I mean, at one point they had really good players at San Jose, and they were good enough, but they didn't really pull it together. So, but it is what it is. I mean, I feel like that's the NHL. Just reminds me a lot of basketball, where you'll have a bottom dweller team near the end of the year somehow beat one of the top 2 teams in the NBA, just because, sometimes an NBA team goes out and just shoots cold, can't shoot anything. So, and that happens. That happens in sports. So,
yeah, with that, go on to Orange Ball.
Orange Ball.
NBA is in full swing. College basketball, I think, starts this weekend. If I'm not that or early next week, because I think Nebraska's first game is November 3rd or 4th. Which I think
I was going to say it starts.
It starts very, very soon.
Yep, it's basically next week.
Yeah, November 4th is their first game, so yeah, I mean it's. I mean, we might talk about more of this next week, but college basketball is literally right around the corner now.
Which is so weird to me that NBA starts before. I'm just so used to college football starting before NFL,
right?
But in this case, where NBA started before college, it's just weird to me. So
okay, so yeah, I was trying to see does college basketball start before next Monday? No, it looks like in Nebraska and a plethora of other teams all start November 4th. So it looks like November 4th is the official start for college basketball. But
sweet
that if we don't talk about it, I mean, go Nebraska ball. We'll
talk
preview.
I was gonna say we'll probably talk about it next week.
Yeah,
do a preview into the season.
Correct.
With that said, though, being that we're on NBA, Jett was here 2 episodes. No, sorry. At this point, as of this recording, that'll be 3 episodes ago.
Right.
So I don't know if we ever got your NBA knowledge or pick. So,
Oh yeah, or your team.
team player. Who do you follow?
So I told Zach like I really don't cheer on a team, but one player I've always liked is Damian Lillard. Just kind of feel like that boy deserves a ring, but he's getting old, so like I'm just kind of crossing my fingers at this point. But with that being said, I guess I'm a Milwaukee Bucks fan because that's where he got traded to, which is not a bad team to pick because we still got Giannis. So I mean, kind of a big dog, you could say. I don't know how their record's been looking this year. I haven't checked out the NBA schedule, but for Nate's sake, he told me to talk about the Timberwolves, and it looks like they're kind of working out. They started off slow. They lost to the Lakers, but now they're 2-1. I honestly kind of like the Timberwolves because I just love Anthony Edwards as a player. He's another player I love to follow. He's just such a cool guy in my opinion. So I hope that they do good, but yeah, I guess I'm a Bucks fan this year. So
Well,
go
good thing.
Bucks.
I mean, I'm glad somebody chose a not a West team out of the four of us that talk on this pod.
You're welcome.
You're the first East team this season.
I didn't know they were in the East, but hey, I'll take it.
Yeah,
I'll take it.
They're a player on the East.
Well,
my NBA
I mean-
knowledge is pretty scarce, but we'll fix that this year, of course.
Oh yeah.
It's like you said the last time that you were on this podcast, though, and that's what this podcast does: is we inform the people. And therefore, once Jett was on the podcast, and yes, I am kind of speaking for you, and I'm also paraphrasing what you said, but it was something to the effect of, well, now I'm excited to go watch baseball. And we've never said that before we started talking about these things. So
No.
it has, we have the power to bring people together, guys. That's what we're doing here.
We are trying our best.
All
like
through the
it.
name of sports. Oh,
like
you know
it.
what? I just realized we forgot to talk about the Patreon that's going to still be coming out.
Oh yes.
We haven't
For
heard.
baseball. Yes.
We got to go back to baseball for a little bit. We unfortunately have not heard too much demand yet, but we know that it's there. So just like we said, I think inflation is still kind of hitting us pretty hard. So I think we need to raise it a little bit.
Mhm.
I think we ended on 10 billion last time. It might be up to
Yes.
maybe 12 just
Hey.
for some
That's just how it
extra
goes.
cost.
That's just how it
Sorry
goes.
about it. But again, once we get that demand, that Patreon link will be live. We'll make sure we get it done. So please donate to our cause because
Mhm.
we would love to run. I think we came up with 2 MLB teams last time, and then that's gonna start our business venture of we're just gonna own a bunch of other sports teams. So
Mhm.
I honestly think we got a good idea here. So if our fans want to support us,
If you want to make history,
please do so.
join that Patreon. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, and if we go at one more MLB talk, Mookie Betts hit another home run, so it's now 3-0 Dodgers. So,
Yeah.
if we get score updates as we keep recording, we'll just keep you updated on what happens in Game 3.
We'll as if people can't go and look at it.
Well, no.
It's
They get-
fun to talk about it
They
as
get
that. Well, since
information
we're on
next
that,
Game 3, when Games 4 and 5 might be played by the time this episode comes out.
that is a good point. Also, to that point though, as of the end of the second period, the Nashville Predators have tied it up with the Tampa Bay Lightning. So it's a good game for the third
There we
period.
go.
going
And
into
you
that,
were
baby.
worried.
I'll admit, I
what?
might have been a little concerned, but the Predators figured it out in the second period. They got to put it together in the third to win, but
Right.
I'd much rather have a regular what is that called? Regular time win, not regular time, but not overtime
Regulation.
win. Regulation, thank you. Regulation win. Words are hard. Words are hard.
All right. Well, Zach, do you want to talk about your team real quick before we get to the
Oh
Thunder?
yeah.
We'll
Forgot
go
what we
back
were
to
doing.
baseball,
Forgot what
or
we were doing here.
basketball. NBA. Yeah,
Forgot
Jets
we were
cheering for the Bucks.
Forgot we were
So
talking
Go
sports.
Bucks.
Darn
So,
Patreon.
Jett will follow the Bucks board. He'll have more to talk about next time.
Facts.
But yeah, the old Phoenix
Spoiler
Suns
alert.
there.
Sounds like Jet's coming on next time.
Yeah.
No, the Suns have had a pretty good start to the year. Now, to the point, as of this recording, we're only 3 to 4 games into the season for most teams. For pretty much all teams, I guess. Not even most. It's 3 to 4 games somewhere. And I think as of this recording as well, we're hitting the sports equinox. So we've got NHL, NBA, NFL, and MLB all on tonight. So super exciting kind of night if you're a big sports fan. Unfortunately, everybody that's a part of the sports equinox will hear about it after it's ended from us, but nonetheless.
Yes.
But no, the Suns have had a pretty good start to the year. Opening up with, I believe, the Lakers. Yep, they opened against. No, sorry, the Clippers. They opened up against the Clippers, Lakers, and Mavs. Won against the Clippers in a overtime nail biter, which I have said this before to Nate and Andy outside of this podcast. I always felt like I was like, I don't know, just basketball's not really my sport. And I watched that entire game, and I was like, nope, I'm in. I didn't get to watch the Lakers game. I was out and about, unfortunately. So I saw that we lost, but I mean, the Lakers are in the last few years been known really for starting really strong and then kind of teetering towards the end, middle towards the end. So we'll see if they hold. And then they beat the Mavericks the other night, 114 to 102, which to me is a very early statement type of win because the Mavericks are the Suns, like their rivals, for sure. One of their rivals. And of course, I think Luka is a great player, but I hate watching him play, especially against the Suns. Just annoys the hell out of me. Everybody always makes fun of James Harden for being such a flopper and everything, but Luka, I think, is 10 times worse now. But you know what? I mean, that's basketball. And to the point, if that's what it is to get people to understand the play, or not understand, sorry. If that's what it is to get the refs to call it, then they're playing to what they need to do. I get it. But no, I think it's good. The worst part is this is still early enough that you don't really have too much to go off of, small sample size. The biggest thing that I talked about last time was also that we had Mike Budenholzer come in. So far different looking offense from last year. A lot more 3-pointers being taken, the Suns, which is really interesting to see. Some questionable shots sometimes, but it's kind of I feel like it's kind of one of those things where it's you miss 100% of the shots you don't take kind of thing. So it is what it is. They've looked good. I think it's one of those things where you can't really take too much until about 10, 15 games in to where, what do the substitutions look like? What do the teams look like after they've gotten into the regular season, run of things? So they looked good. It's been exciting. They take on the Lakers tonight as of this recording. So it should be interesting to see how they bounce back from their loss a little bit ago. But I'm excited to see how it goes. So hopefully a deep playoff run for the Suns, if not maybe another return to the finals, but we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. And just in terms of, standings right now in general, it's so hard to tell, 3 to 4 games into the season. Can't really take too much away from where teams are situated right now, but, you have an idea of what we thought the top teams would be. In the West, you have the Lakers, Thunder, Suns, Grizzlies. Timberwolves are in the play-in spot right now, quote unquote, but again, it's 3 games in. And then obviously in the East, you have the Cavs.
A bit early to be talking about that.
Yeah, it is. It's very, very early to be talking about that. But in terms of the Thunder, I know I texted you guys this the other day. I just said the Thunder might be good. And might be an understatement. They're just a fun team to watch. Obviously I'm biased with watching Alex play with that, but it's fun to see. Just like they're so young, and the Thunder I think are like the youngest NBA team right now by roster. I think their average age is like 24 and like 100 days or something like that. And Alex skews that probably by a little bit because he's like 30. So the fact that like the average age is like a bunch of, average age of 24-year-olds, and then you have this 30-year-old 7-year vet on your team. But they're fun to watch. They play just hard defense, and they're doing this all without Isaiah Harsonen, who they traded for in the offseason as their center. So like Jett Holmgren's been like their center right now, trying to be the main 5-piece, and he leads the league in blocks right now. The Thunder also lead the league in defensive points allowed at like averaging 94 and 95 right now. Again, 3 games in, but it's very evident that the Thunder are much of a defensive-minded team first, and then the scoring comes with time. And I mean, I didn't think that they would hold the Nuggets to 87 points when they played them, but that was pretty impressive. Now the Nuggets might have like a setback here. Kind of the first 3 games that I've watched of them, they're just shucks, right? They're not as good as I think people are expecting them to be. Again, the Thunder I think they're just so much better, but I'm biased with that opinion. But it's very evident, that the Thunder want to go defense first. The points will come later in terms of who is going to be leading. Obviously, SGA is going to be their main scorer. I mean, there's no question about that. Shea will be the main point guard, leading scorer on the team most nights in, night in and night out. But it's the fact that they're fun to watch. That's all I can say. Alex is having, kind of a slow start to the year in terms of offense, but I think the Thunder know that that's not what he's there for. He's just there to just be a more perimeter guard defensive guy. And if you look at that plus minus stat that I love to talk about every game, Alex has been like plus 17, plus 5. And then this last game, he was like plus 19 for the Thunder. So it's just like, even though he's not scoring like more than 2 to 3 points a night right now, again, we're only 3 games in, but it's the fact that like his defensive stats and just when he's out there, the Thunder just seem to go on a run every single time, just from him playing defense. So it's super fun if you like watching defense in the NBA, which I think if you do watch the Thunder at any point this season, that's what you're going to see. Is the Thunder right now are just like a team of Alex Caruso's in terms of just their hustle. They're diving for every ball, trying to get every steal, get every rebound, and then the shots will fall on the other end. And they haven't put up a whole ton of points. I mean, they put up 102, 114, and this last game they put up 128. But the Hawks, who they played last night, I think are better than what we think they're going to be going forward. The Hawks went into that game 2-0 as well. Again, I know it's super early, but I think Atlanta's going to be a sneaky pick in the East in terms of a team that I think we might need to watch out for. We obviously know Trae Young's really good, but I forgot who I was watching, who the rookie that they got last night. He had a hell of a defensive game and offensive game. So I think as of right now, I think the Hawks might be a little bit of a sneaky pick of who to contend in the East. I don't think they're going to take on and beat Boston, but just how they looked last night, I think they might be a little dark horse there to watch going forward. That's what I think, but Memphis also might be there too. I think Memphis is going to be really good.
I don't hate that.
Ja Morant stays out of trouble. That's the caveat with that one.
Yeah, that's fair.
When Ja Morant's in trouble, the Grizzlies do not do well.
It's crazy how that boy gets into trouble. He's such a good player, and he could probably make it to the Hall of Fame if he just put the gun down. Like, why are you putting that on Instagram Live, bro? Like, what are you doing? Multiple times. Like, it's kind of like the saying, like, rappers want to be basketball players and basketball players want to be rappers. Like, you are perfectly fitting the stereotype.
Embodies that.
Literally. It's
100%.
Like, stop, bro. Stop, please.
And he is a really good player
in the game.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care for Memphis by any means, but like he is a very, very good player. And it's just like, dude, just don't do that and you'll be fine.
But he continues to do it.
But I just realized that I forgot about something about the Suns that I thought was exciting. Is that kind of similar to Zach LaRue on my NHL take with the Predators, is that Ryan Dunn, who was their defense, like they got him in the draft this year, and the idea was like, oh, like we need to get him because of his defensive stats. He has been incredible, an incredible pickup for the Suns. And to your point, kind of reminds me a lot of like how Alex plays. Alex is far more like if there's a ball that's going out of bounds, he's gonna dive for it. And I'm like,
oh, absolutely, no questions asked.
Like Ryan Dunn, I think is pretty close to that, but he very much is like trying to save his body. He's young enough, I think, where like he could bounce up from that, but I think he's just from what I've seen as I've watched. And this is not like an overall thing. So if I have people that are Suns fans that are like, oh, that are coming for me, it's like that's not. I'm not saying that he doesn't play hard. I'm saying it in the sense of like he plays hard, but I think he's trying to save himself. So he's selectively playing hard to where it's required, as in this is where I need to put in that effort to spur the team back. Anyway, the point being is that he's been very much a spark plug for the team. It's been fun to watch. The weird one that's been iffy has been Nurkic. Nurkic and Book hasn't looked good early on, but it's early in the season. I mean, it takes a little bit. We got some new guys. We got the Suns have a whole new system, quite a few new guys. It's not going to happen that quick.
It's kind of like what Nate said last episode was that when they got Rudy Gobert in that trade 2 years ago, I mean, 2 years ago, the Wolves were trying to figure out. Then last year, it kind of really came into their own before the whole Cat trade. And that might be the same thing with the Wolves again this year, is they kind of take a couple months to figure out, how do you play without Cat on your team anymore? And how do you figure out, where to put DiVincenzo and Randall in the Wolves lineup? But not that the Suns fans want to hear like, oh, we don't want this whole season to be about trying to figure out what's going to happen next season. But, basketball, it does take time to instill a system. I mean, it's, as we're seeing with Nebraska football right now, I mean, these things take time to instill with the new system and coach and everything. I mean, it takes time. Now, basketball, you just have a lot more sample size because you play a lot more games more frequently, where the football, you only get so many a year. But it's, that's what I was just going to say.
NBA very much gives you that chance to do that.
Yeah, and
they give you that chance to really to do that.
Right, and you still have Kevin Durant. I mean, he might not be as prime KD as he was, 3-4 years ago, but I mean, he's the way that he played during the Olympics tells me. I mean, he still has that shooter mentality, that I take over mentality type in him. And now again, the Olympics, obviously you're playing with all stars, but Kevin Durant alone in those games, I mean, just proved that he could still take over a game when he needs to and when he wants to. So now it's just a matter of getting that to all work and gel with the Suns and figuring it out. But
absolutely, it's going to be going to be a slow climb, I think, but they'll get there.
They will get there. With that, I think we will switch over to the foosballs. We'll start with, I think, NFL probably first, just before we get into the heart of college football. So last slate, so we can't not talk about what happened Thursday with the Rams and Vikings. I know Nate does not want to talk about it.
He's not here, so
he wasn't here, and coincidentally, he wasn't even watching the game because the Kings and the Wolves played in Sacramento on Thursday night as well. So Nate was at that game, watching the Wolves beat Sacramento by 2 points. So
great game, by the way.
Talked about the game probably wouldn't have even helped anyways because he famously did not watch the game. But the Rams having Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua back shockingly made them look a lot better than when they weren't on the field for Stafford. Weird that you needed your two top receivers to kind of get the offense going back again for the Rams. And some of that might be a detriment to, just a bad day for the secondary for the Vikings. But overall, the talk about what happened on that face mask will not be not talked about. Now, it's not a guarantee that Minnesota would have still kept driving to win the game. I mean, when you start at the 3-yard line, when you need to go a minute something with no timeouts, it's pretty hard to do in the NFL unless you get a busted explosive play. But it certainly didn't help their chances that nothing was called and that safety essentially ended the game off an Eric Crouch type face mask that never got called. So we'll talk about this with Nebraska and OSU. There is a referee problem, an officiating problem, and I know Zach has brought this up on multiple occasions for college football. It's definitely a spillover into both leagues for college and NFL of an officiating problem this year, and it's gotten to the point where it is costing games. And we'll get into the Nebraska side when we talk about them in a second. But like,
I do think, though, you saying that just kind of introduces the point that I wanted to bring up that I feel like we should all talk. I just want to see what we all think out loud. And so, Jett, I didn't tell you this, so you're going to be the one that I want to hear your thoughts on. I know kind of what Andy and I think just because like we texted back and forth on this. But I will admit, as a sports fan, with refereeing for years, I've done this where I'll say, you know what? There were plenty of chances for a team to win a game or this, that, the other. You know, there are plenty of things you can point at where, and using Minnesota game as the example, you can point back and say they had chances to win it. They didn't capitalize on them. The refs are human. I don't think there's this big conspiracy where the refs are out to rig games. Do I think it happens in some cases? Sure. It's been proven that it happens in the NBA. However, this year and maybe even tail ends of like last year with refereeing, it's weird because it's like, I am still of the firm belief that referees are human and that sometimes just don't see the call, and that does happen, right? That just happens. There are certain calls and certain patterns that you can see in refereeing lately, though, where it's just like something has to be done. Because if you're going to sell me on the idea, who I will say, you know, the refs are generally correct, right? The ref makes the call, they're correct. You don't argue with them because then they can make things worse for you. As in, they can throw you out of the game, they can throw a flag if you're playing football, whatever. So if you're going to sell me, who is believing that the refs are not in the wrong, that you're not part of some bigger conspiracy for gambling, for whatever, you're not doing a good job of it right now. And the refereeing in football in general, for sure, basketball maybe. I mean, we're not far enough into it yet. But like the refereeing that we're seeing in football right now is so questionable. And this is not even from the Nebraska fan, the Eagle fan. It's a football fan side of things. It's so questionable that I am starting to believe that there is some conspiracy. So I'm curious what you guys have for thoughts for that.
My thought is, I think we've gotten to the point where, I mean, yes, it's okay to have judgment calls. I mean, your pass interference are going to be your most common example of like judgment calls for refs. It's now gotten to the point where I think, and it happened in the Nebraska game, where I think refs are starting to rely on replay more often than not, and then don't make the calls, or they try to make the calls in hopes that replay might help correct them if they don't call something.
Which I'm fine with.
Which, yes, and replay should be there as an assistant, but not as a crutch to, oh, if I don't do this, replay is going to be there to help me. Like, I think that's maybe, you know, it's hard to speak about how officials get talked about, educated with all of this. But from what we've seen, it looks like they are starting to want to rely on replay more to help them out, make calls rather than trying to make them calls themselves and then it backfires or anything like that. And then it needs to be a discussion of, okay, if this is going to keep happening, do we just keep relying on more technology advances of, like, you know, trackers and the GPS of the balls, so you can get an accurate spot of where the ball was when the player was down. You know,
spoiler alert.
Yeah, right. And I don't know how we have so many camera angles nowadays when we have the pylon camera, but we don't have a camera 24/7 that just shoots straight down the goal lines anymore. Like, it only happens there if like somebody is in the red zone and there happens to be a TV crew that's like right on the red zone, but like, or the end zone. But we don't have like stationary cameras that just shoot down the goal lines And with all the camera angles we have nowadays, I don't know why that's not there anymore. But we can put cameras in the pylons and the chains to see where people are when they are down. But we can't have like a 4K camera that can actually help with these situations type thing, you
It's
know.
crazy.
But that's my opinion is, and I mean we'll talk more about it because Rule talked about it today during his presser. He was like, I refereeing's a hard job. Like I don't ever want that job upon anybody. Like I know how hard it is, but he was also talking about like there needs to be consistency with these calls and what happens to Nebraska, what happens to other teams. Like, and he talked about it. He's like, I don't want to keep coming here Sunday and Monday apologizing and saying or like having the Big Ten or the officiating crew say I'm sorry to Nebraska because the call went against you. Like it shouldn't have happened in the first place. So it should be just a consistency across the board, regardless of who's playing what team and who's the calls against or anything. And there's in rules that advocate against this or for this, and I'm sure most people are too, is there needs to be consistency across the board. And Rule brought up a good point today too, is and I'm not making this all about Nebraska, but just his points that I heard was when they're like in preseason training camp, they have official meetings with like referees and they go over what is talked about as a point of emphasis for the season for refs. Like, this is what we're going to be calling more. This is what we're going to be looking out more. So that way you kind of know as players, like if they're going to be calling more OPIs because they're more focused on you pushing off, you try to coach them not to do that. So it's hard when you are told one thing in training camp and then you're 6-7 games into the season and these rules are changing from what they told you at the beginning of the season. That can't keep happening. And it happened to Nebraska plenty of times on Saturday, and it's happened in other Big Ten games too. Ohio State, Oregon had a questionable OPI that wasn't an OPI either, as we heard after the next day. So it's not just Nebraska, it's other teams in big games like this that are also getting screwed in these calls. And there's no consistency from what they're told at the beginning of the season to now. So it's like, what's changing? And if it keeps changing, why aren't these coaches informed of what the changes are going forward? So I know I made that like a lot of points about Nebraska, but what Rule talked about today is like just a specific microcosm of what refereeing in both the NFL and college is like right now. There's no consistency, and the refs are too scared to make a call and relying on replay to help them make and assist the calls. So that's my point. I don't know about you, Jett.
Yeah, go for it, Jett.
You brought up a really good point with the consistency thing. That's any fan, that's all they can ask for in a ref is to keep it fair between both teams. And I think that's where like the whole conversation of is there betting coming up, because almost every game, not to like fast forward to the college football section, but every at least Big Ten post that I have seen, there has been some complaint about the refs every single time, like about a missed call, about anything. And like you said about the face mask against Vikings, I physically watched the ref stare at his head,
There were
turn
two of
like this. Like, what are you doing?
two of them looking at Sam Darnold when that happened.
Like,
Neither
you
one
saw his head whip around, and you're just not gonna throw a flag. Like, as Andy said, go review it. Like, you can do that now, and it's just crazy that they're not even throwing the flag at all.
And I don't want the game to become every single flag gets reviewed,
right?
To a certain degree, because it's going to make the games take longer. And yes, I get it. Like, oh yeah, I want more. I want more football. I want more sports. But like, I want the sport to keep going. I don't want flags to take 10 minutes because they got to review all of them. But at the same time, I am fine where if they're like they throw a flag and then they're like, we're not sure. Let's check it and see. Because when you see it in real time, it's like this looks like it. But then when you go back and look. We review every scoring play and make sure that it scores. And I'm fine with that. Now, granted, I'm not fine with having to throw in 47 commercials, but that's a different argument. But in terms of if you have access to the technology to review the play, and if you throw the flag as more of like a, hey, we're going to throw the flag and then you review it. And I guess there comes to the point of irrefutable evidence, but like to the point, it's like if you review it and you're like, we might have got that call wrong, pick up the flag. Yes, fans are going to be upset, but at the same time, I would much rather have that than this wishy-washy stuff we're seeing now, because it's it's so hard. It's hard to be a fan of sports when the refs are just.
Mm-hmm.
And again, to your point, I think you said, Andy, was we don't know that the Vikings weren't going to go down and score against the Rams. We never got to find out. That's the
Right.
problem. It's like
Right.
they could have. We don't know. They never got the chance.
No, it's the math would tell you it's like a slim chance, but the fact that the Vikings didn't have a chance to do it is what hurts probably the most for Vikings fans. It's it's hard to tell watching that game what Nate would have said, like, oh, if this would have happened, we wouldn't have been in the situation type of game. But it's you don't get the chance to know that the Vikings could have driven it down. Something might have crazy wonky happened. I mean, yesterday with the Bears and Commanders, I mean, you had no idea that with 2 seconds left that the Commanders were going to complete a Hail Mary.
Exactly.
It's just like, I'm sure I haven't looked at the odds. I'm sure the odds of that, like in that last play when it happened, probably had like Chicago at a 90% chance of winning, if not more. Just because the odds of completing a Hail Mary are just so low, but it happened. So it's like you get wonky stuff like that. And the Vikings could have had the same opportunity where you get it kind of close to the 50 with like a couple of seconds left and you let Sam air it out, see what happens type thing. So it's the fact that they didn't get a chance to do that because of a very obvious face mask that 2 refs were looking at and never called. So it's, like what Jett had said too, we want consistency across the board of what teams are told in preseason and what is happening in this season. And I'll be like surprised or just interested to see once we get to the offseason in the NFL and we talk about like the coaches meeting, referees meeting, like rule changes for the new year. If something of that aspect is going to change in terms of using replay to assist with penalties like that or something like that. But to your point too, Zach, is I don't want that to happen because the last 5 minutes of Nebraska Ohio State took 30 minutes to complete. And that was with, the targeting review, the Ohio State's throwing things on the fan, the Sportsman, I mean, all of that just culminated to like just such a long ending to that game that 30 minutes of real time to play those 5 minutes of football at the end.
And
so
like you said, we'll discuss
Yeah.
the rest of that later too. But
yeah,
refereeing is just a general problem, I
Mhm.
think, right now. And I
It
don't
is.
know the answer to it, but I don't know. I think we're going to be having this discussion the rest of the year, to be honest, until maybe next year something comes out. But oh well, we'll see what happens.
It is. But yeah, speaking of the Bears and Commanders that I already brought up, segue back to talking about the NFL. I thought one extremely funny that the Bears tried to run that fullback dive with like their lineman, and I'm like, okay, Chicago deserves to lose this game at this point after doing that. And then they took the lead. I'm like, okay, maybe they figured it out, didn't do it, and then it was inevitable. Just the minute that Chicago was somehow going to lose a heartbreaking game like that, it's just of all teams to do it against, of all things to happen to, it's extremely funny that it ended on a Hail Mary from that. When I know as not a coach, you put somebody behind the tip. And if you remember Nebraska, Northwestern, all those years ago with Ron Kellogg and Jordan Westerkamp.
Oh, Westerkamp, baby.
Westerkamp was behind that tip. And it happened exactly again on Sunday yesterday with the Commanders and Bears. Is you get everybody in the pile up, you're trying to knock the ball down, but you put somebody behind that pile on purpose. And it's for that exact reason is you'll never catch an easier tip in your life. That Commanders receiver is just like, oh, I'm just going to see the ball.
Right here.
I'm right here. Just cradle it in, and they won the game. So, it's. And then the fact that I know we all seen the video that that Bears cornerback that was like talking to the fans as the play is going on behind him.
Oh no!
Have you not seen it, Zach?
I haven't seen that. No,
bro. Number 29. He was taunting the fans. He was like, God. "Yeah, we won the game," and he was the guy who actually like tipped the ball towards to the receiver.
It is hysterical.
Oh, if I could be a fly on the wall in that meeting room.
And then he came out today on Twitter and it's like, I apologize to like Chicago. Like, I'll do better. I promise I'll do better. It's like, dude, you
might get cut, bro.
I was gonna say he might get cut after that.
That's bad.
It was hysterical.
That's bad.
It's one of the funnier things I've seen.
It was pretty funny. I gotta say that.
Oh, I gotta find it here.
Well, while he's looking,
you can go.
we can move on to the game. I like. Yes, the Eagles won. I will talk about that in a bit. But the game I really wanted to talk about, and I have to preface this: I didn't get to watch too much NFL yesterday. I was at a golf tournament. Somehow, at the end of October, I was at a golf tournament. A lot of fun. Not a great golfer still, but we're here. We had a good time. But I was looking through just some highlights and whatnot the other day or yesterday when I got home, and I saw that somehow the Browns beat the Ravens. How did that one happen? And the only thing I can assume is that it was Jameis Winston magic.
Oh, absolutely. There's nothing else to explain how the Browns beat that game.
Because the Ravens
just
should have smacked them out of the just should have smacked them, because the Ravens have looked like outside of like 2 games, well, I guess 3 now, they've looked like wagons. And to me, I was like, if the Ravens and the Chiefs meet up, I still firmly believe this. If the Chiefs and the Ravens meet up, I still think the Ravens have the favorite, just offensively, at least speaking. The Chiefs defense could do some damage, but the Ravens offense just looks really good. But I don't know what happened, but the Browns. And then not only that, then you have the discussion of the Browns may have won. They have Jameis Winston, who I still think is a fine enough quarterback. I don't think he's going to necessarily maybe win you a Super Bowl, but he'll be fine.
Won the game.
He won him the game, but then they're still tied to the Deshaun Watson contract. So, like,
yeah, that's a tough look for him.
The Browns are just such an anomaly to me.
I mean, we had all been clamoring for Jameis before the season even started, just because, like,
Deshaun Watson sucks.
Yeah, Deshaun Watson sucks as a player and a human, and nobody wanted to watch him anyways. But it's the fact that, like, you don't know what you're gonna get with Jameis, and that's the entire fun wild card intrigue about him. Is he can go out there and he can throw you 5 touchdowns. He can also throw 4 interceptions at the exact same time. So or he can throw 3 interceptions and then he can throw you 1 touchdown, but that touchdown might win you the game type thing. So it's like, you just never know what you're going to get with Jameis, and that's the intrigue, and that's what we wanted him out there for. But yeah, it's the Ravens. The 2 losses are just unexplainable. The 1 loss to the Chiefs, absolutely, totally explainable week 1. But then the Raiders and the Browns 2 losses. Do they just play superior teams great and win? And then when they get to the inferior teams, they're just like, we can relax a little bit. Yes, they play down to their competition.
It's really bad.
It's so far, it's hard not to say that it's not true, because it's what's happened. I mean, you shouldn't lose to the Raiders or the Browns if they lost to them both so far. So,
well, before we get to any of our specific games, I was curious.
Did you watch it?
I didn't watch the game, but I did see like the highlights from it. And the one thing I took away from the Browns and Ravens is the Ravens defense just didn't show up. They just kind of looked like they were asleep. And kind of like Andy's point with Jameis Winston, I saw the highlight of the play before the game when he touched down. He literally threw it at the defender and just dropped it.
That should have been picked off, and it
should have been picked. Ravens. Should have been the game. Like, it's one of those situations where that DB, or I don't know if it's a middle linebacker, but he kind of was surprised that he had this free opportunity and he just dropped it. If that didn't happen, Browns wouldn't have won the game. But that is such a Jameis story. As a Saints fan, I know Jameis magic. I really do. And that's to a T what Jameis magic is, like almost to a pick, very next play scoring a touchdown. So I was happy to see the Browns wins. I'm not a big Ravens fan, but they are good. But seeing them 2-6,
yes,
hey, gives me a reason to drink. Like, go Browns, baby, go Browns.
Yeah, we can now say that now that we're not cheering for Deshaun anymore. So
yeah, sorry, Deshaun, but you dug your own grave with that, buddy.
He needed to go.
He really did.
So Zach, I see that you finally got to watch the video now.
That's bad. That's really bad.
That's pretty bad.
What's crazy to me, and I understand it was a Hail Mary, but like
everybody else, the play is going on behind him.
The play
No.
started.
No.
The play started, and he's still chirping. I'm like, dog, this is not.
He's throwing his hands
This
like,
is not hockey.
whatever.
This is
No
not
idea.
hockey.
Like,
Yo,
No
the
idea.
play's
like
going on behind him, and he's like, no, waving his hand to the fan, like, whatever. Like, no.
And
Then
granted-
he looks over and he's like, oh, people are going. I need to go over there.
granted, it was a Hail Mary. It took forever to develop. You know what? I get it. Fine.
Yeah, I think
Like-
they said Jaden held onto that ball for 12 seconds.
That was the
But-
long. Yeah, that was
But
one
to
of the
be the
longest Hail Marys
guy,
ever.
but to be the guy that loses the game,
Oh,
that's
dude,
just
that's so
gotta
bad.
hurt.
I loved all the
Oh.
Twitter replies on it, on the one at least I was watching, where
Yeah.
it's just like it's the video of the guy that goes to walk into a building and it's just locked, and it was just this guy going to walk in, it's just
The
locked,
next day.
Yeah,
and a bunch of
he-
people are like, he needs to be cut and like not never let on a football team again. Like, I get it, like, you know, you're paid, if not millions, at least hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on where you're at in your contract and all that.
Right.
You're paid an obscene amount of money to play this. The fact that he's still doing this while the play started and was going on is shocking to me.
It was
But-
phenomenal. Don't ever change. Bears.
Good old Bears.
That
Good
was
old
great.
Bears. I think
It
other
has to
game, real
be-
quick.
Bears have to be the hardest team to cheer on. I swear to God, that's gotta hurt.
I mean, the
gotta
Browns. The Browns, I think, got to be up there right now.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're riding high right now. They're
Yes,
riding
yeah, they
high.
are, but they also gave up. I
I'm
don't know.
just
If he's-
saying,
I don't know if
for
he
the
was
fact
prime, but
of
they gave
what
up
happened.
Baker Mayfield, and I don't
Yeah.
like Baker Mayfield, but what are you doing?
Yeah.
True.
it's-
Good point.
What game were you going to talk about, Zach?
I think we all kind of knew this, but I think we officially got confirmation is that the Lions probably a wagon.
Yeah. I mean, playing Tennessee doesn't really help. Either.
Understandable.
I mean,
Understandable. Well, but not only did they
They're a wagon.
win, they won handedly. Like there was
Handedly,
no
yes.
doubt in your mind. The one I was questioning was the Dolphins and Cardinals.
Dude, I avoided that pick last week. I know that we talked about like it could be a true sick game, and I was like, if I had to pick a winner, I would have slightly have leaned towards the Cardinals, just because with Tua back, you had no idea what that offense was going to look like anymore, how Tua was going to be, or anybody like that. But yeah, that was a game I wanted to pick, but I also wanted to avoid because that easily could have gone 50-50 of who was going to win that game. And I loved seeing all the replies of like Tua's first takeoff and he slides and everybody cheers in the stadium because he slid and didn't go head first into a defender this time. So yeah, Cardinals,
I didn't see the game. So like I had said earlier, I didn't see the game.
Mhm.
So I was trying to like just wrap because I guess I was keeping up on my phone in terms of like scores and just
Mhm.
seeing highlights and stuff. And I was trying to keep up, and I saw at one point that the Dolphins were up. I think they were up by at
Yes.
halftime or something. And it wasn't like a high scoring game. It wasn't one of those where it's like, oh, like, okay, like the Dolphins have this in the bag or whatever.
right?
But then at one point I saw that the score was enough. It was like, oh, I think the Dolphins are going to pull this one out, which is great because Tua was coming back. I don't really have a problem with the Cardinals. It was just one of those where it's like, oh, I think that's what's going to happen. And then when I saw the score yesterday or today, this morning when I woke up, I was like, what happened? What did I miss? And I like I said, I missed a lot of like football yesterday. I did have like while we were golfing, I had my phone up and I was watching the Eagles game, which I'll talk about. But
Right,
I was just like, what happened? How did that happen?
right.
But I was curious if you had any insight on that one or if you'd watched it or anything.
Just whatever Red Zone showed me, so it wasn't a whole lot.
Okay.
Other than the Cardinals, Marvin Harrison had a stellar day, so the Cardinals can kind of figure out their offense a little bit. I mean, they could certainly put up points, but again,
They're 4-4.
yeah,
So.
it's it might be relying on Kyler. I mean, definitely going to be relying on Kyler having a good game. I mean, their offense hinges on him making the right decisions and everything. But other quick turnaround games, Packers walk off against Jacksonville, and big story there is Jordan
As
Love went
expected
down.
was the walk-off against
Yeah, it
Jacksonville.
was the walk off against Jacksonville, but Jordan Love went down with like a lower body injury or lower leg injury. I haven't read too much. I don't know if it's the same one that happened during the Philly game. But the end of the game, I mean, Jordan Love was still in all pads walking out of the field, so it might be just like a precaution thing. But you know, we'll see what the Packers going forward. You know, what Jordan Love's status is. The Jets losing to the Patriots by far got to be.
I was going to say before we did quick turnarounds, that was the game I really, really want to talk about because I think at this point we can officially call the Jets experiment a failure.
It's so bad. I mean, you trade for Devontae Adams and he has 6 catches in 2 games. 7 catches in 2 games. And it's incredible how much they traded for him. And the Jets don't have a bad wide receiver combo with Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams. It's the fact that you have Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball.
Here's
and the Patriots are not good. Like the Patriots suck.
Right.
Drake, we said last week, Drake May is the shining star in the Patriots, and that's it.
Well, and Drake May might be out for a little bit now.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't even necessarily play a full Drake May.
Right.
So the point being, though, is like, at what point do you, and I'm not sitting here saying, oh, Zach Wilson was this far superior quarterback,
right.
But like the Jets have a really good defense. Under Robert Saleh, they were good defensively. They didn't quite have the offense figured out. Obviously, there was some problems between Aaron Rodgers and Saleh. Aaron Rodgers won't ever admit that, but there were clearly problems there. And it's just things like that where it's like, at what point do you finally admit that this experiment that you're doing isn't working? Because the players that are on outside, and I don't inherently hate Aaron Rodgers. I don't care for him just as a player in general and whatnot, but like he's not the quarterback he used to be, but I don't think he's bad. But
right.
At what point do you argue, is he the problem? And I mean, obviously none of us are Jets fans, so we really don't care. Like, it's more just fun to watch this terror from the outside. But
yes,
I don't know, man. I don't know. I can't. I'm hard pressed to be like, I don't think this is working anymore.
No, it's not. And you know, it's fine if it happens to the Jets and Aaron Rodgers. We don't really, like you said, Jack, we don't really care about him anymore.
I mean, to be quite frank, I'm just upset that anybody won that game. Would have been funny if that came out in a tie.
It would have been.
Because I don't like the Patriots either. So
no. Other scores before we get to our game or our teams. The Cowboys 49ers just look good. The Cowboys offense finally figured out that CeeDee Lamb is probably their best target. And he did go off like I know weird that CeeDee Lamb is your best offensive target on the Cowboys. So as we now know that their defense is still a tire fire and probably will be the rest of the year. But I guess if you're a Cowboys fan, the silver lining is like CD is finally going to start to go off for you. So you might have some shot at doing some things with that. Texans escape the Colts narrowly.
All I got to say about that game is I saw the Colts at halftime. I tuned into the game and it was 10-10. And I saw, was it Anthony, is it Richardson? Is that the quarterback's name?
Yeah. I
think so. I saw him throw to the left side of the field and it almost get picked. And I was shocked to see the offensive coordinator decide, oh, let's throw it to the right side of the field.
Yes.
This will work. And there was like less than a minute left of the half. And pick, and very next play, CJ Stroud just throws it to Dell for a touchdown, I think.
Yes.
And that right there. And then I saw the stat line of Anthony Richardson throwing 2 for 14, 2 for 15. I don't know what's going on there, but they have Joe Flacco on the sideline. Why would you not use him? You know? Like, why not throw him in? Is he hurt or something? Am I wrong?
No, I don't. If he is, I don't really know about it. But yeah, the whole Richardson still might need some more time. I mean, it's a double-edged sword where like if you throw him out there, you get experience and he learns, but like he might do stupid things and lose you the game. Where Flacco is a trusted vet, you can try to at least he can manage the game while Richardson tries to learn from it. But yeah, Richardson was like
It
I
just
think at
looked like a
halftime
bad
he was
game.
like 1 or like 2 for 8 or something, and he had 81 yards, but one of those was like the 69-yard pass that he had.
Yeah, it's like you're trying, but
Right.
like it just looked like they were kind of a dumpster fire in that game from
Yes.
what I've seen.
Yes.
But they almost brought it back. I got to give them
Did
credit
it?
there. They almost brought it back.
Texans did hold on, and I still very confused about what the Texans want to do. I mean, they're record-wise, they're fantastic, but the game. I mean, if you watch them play, you're like, I don't really know because
Yeah.
they have the offensive weapons there. And, minus Nico Collins getting hurt, and now Stephon Diggs might be out for a little bit. He went down with like a non-contact injury on Friday or on Sunday, but they didn't really specify what. He still walked off the field on his own, which I mean might be a good sign, but I don't know what to make of the Texans despite them being 6-2. They've had some weird games where they haven't looked great, but they've won, like the Colts game. I don't know. But our teams now. So Zach or Jed, if you two want to go first, doesn't matter.
Jett. I was gonna say I'm gonna give Jett the later floor just because mine is
he's got a lot to talk about.
Mine is fairly quick, I think. The Eagles came out and had what I'm going to call a statement win for the year for the Eagles schedule right now against the Bengals. A Bengals notable, really good offense. Not quite there on defense this year. I think a lot of people that are Bengals fans would agree. But the Eagles played lights out. I didn't get to watch the entire game. I got to watch most of it. But I will say Jalen Hurts, I think, finally had his statement game where I was back to where I saw that that 2022 Jalen Hurts, where he looked like he was just naturally gifted as a quarterback. You know what I mean? And so he looked at that point like he knew what he was doing. He had command of the offense. Everything he was doing was working. Not everything was landing perfectly. I mean, I'm looking at his stats here. He went 16 for 20, which is by no means bad, but he had, a couple drop passes here and there, whatever. One touchdown and 236 yards. I mean, I'm not saying the greatest stat line in the world, but Jalen Hurts had a fantastic game. Saquon Barkley has by far been the greatest pickup, I think, for the Eagles this year. Having a solid running back that is just still good. It turns out it helps. And the defense played really well. They made some key turnovers. The Eagles in the game against the Bengals looked like the 2022, for the most part, Eagles that we saw run to the Super Bowl. Do I think that's indicative of anything going forward? I'm going to say no, just because I think the Bengals defense is far enough down as a defense, just using the eye test, that they may not be exactly the strongest defense to use as a case of like, ooh, this is how we know that the Eagles are back. Are back to being a top team, but I think an argument could be made that the Eagles could be a top team, but they got to keep doing what they did against the Bengals consistently. And I think this, after coming off the win last week, is kind of that statement piece. Like, okay, now we kind of figured out what works. We figured out what doesn't. Now let's just keep doing it. So great game. And I think the key thing to take away from that too was that this was the first time in like a long time that the Eagles had beat the Bengals in Cincinnati. Like that hadn't happened for a really long time. So really cool stat, really good game. Like I said, I didn't get to watch all of it. I got to watch most of it from my cell phone in between golf shots. So it's not like I took it in, and Jett can attest to that too. It's not like I can say that I watched the game and like all eyes on and whatnot, but it was a good game. So with that, Jett, I'm going to give it to you, and let's hear about the Saints, because again, I didn't get to watch the game, so I'm curious the words.
So the Saints, unfortunately, I turned the game off early. So we started off 2-0, and ever since Derek Carr got hurt, we went from Super Bowl talk to being 2-6. Like at the end of the time, like at this point in time, like you can kind of say like Derek Carr is the reason we're not playing good, but I think it just goes back to the coaching. Like we're not using the options that we have. We have AK, we have good receivers, we have Olave, and what's Holloway. We got Holloway as well,
Mm-hmm.
but we just don't use them. I saw the end of the first quarter score and it was 2-0, and I saw Spencer Rattler had like 2 for 5 for like 30 yards. We just don't like know what to do with our players, it seems like, and our defense is trying to save us, but they've resorted to playing dirty. Like I saw a clip of one of our linemen grabbing Justin Herbert's leg and basically bending his knee to try and break it. As much
Oof.
as you want to sit here and say that he wasn't trying to do that, watch the clip. That's all I can say, because that's exactly what it looks like he's trying to do. So, me personally, after looking at Dennis Allen's start, bro's 18-23 from when he started as head coach. He's just, I don't think this is the spot for him, unfortunately. I don't think this works out for him. We're just not playing good football. We're playing dirty football. And like every game we play is just sad. We're scoring 8 points, 10 points. Like it was 10-37 against the Broncos, which I think the Broncos are having themselves a good year, but like 37 points. That's all. Like we can't stop anybody. It's just really sad to see. Like I want to cheer on the Saints, but they're giving me no reason to, unfortunately, this year. And
No,
unfortunately,
it
I
makes
picked
sense.
on to cheer on the Jets too, and fuck, both of them have the same record right now of 2-6.
Yeah, that's
So
tough. That's tough. At
it's
least I think at least with the Saints, and not to unless you had more. I didn't. I
no,
guess I
no,
didn't
no.
want to
Go on, go
interrupt
on,
you,
go
but
on, go on.
what I was gonna say is I think at least with the Saints that you guys have enough of a good enough roster to where you can make the argument that if you fire Dennis Allen, whenever that were to happen, if it were to happen, there is a potential, like maybe like if it were to happen tomorrow, for example, as of this recording, so that'd be Tuesday, the 29th of October. If that were to happen tomorrow, if that does happen, I'll be like, what?
Oh, that'd be
Like, what
nuts.
happened?
But
It
go
would have
on.
happened already, I feel like. But if that were to happen,
Good point.
you guys have a good enough roster to where I don't necessarily think it's going to be a Super Bowl bound type of year, but you could have enough going off into the end of the year where either you have the momentum of like, you might go like 4-13 or whatever it would be, something like that, where like not
Yeah.
a great year record wise, but like there's momentum built based on who comes in as interim, and then you get a head coach, kind of similar to like what happened with the Broncos. Like last year was a little bit rough, but then Sean Payton seems to have kind of found the groove, things that are working. And I don't want to steal Andy's thunder, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. But the point being is like, you might be able to find a head coach with the roster that you have for the Saints that could really work out. Or sorry, the roster could work really well. You just need that head coach that really, I guess that was going to be my question was, do you think it's an issue of not having Derek Carr and the offense itself is fine? Or do you think it's more of an issue of kind of the coaching that's not getting them into good positions?
Well, I think it's honestly just a little bit of both. Like, obviously, Jake Hayner and Spencer Rattler just don't have the reps that Derek Carr does.
Sure.
So they're instantly going to play probably worse than what he would. Spencer Rattler and Jake Hayner both have shown good
Flashes.
qualities. Yeah, good flashes. But
Sure.
like one play that I saw from the Chargers game was we like threw it to the right side of the field and he was going to turn and throw it to the left side of the field. Kind of like one of those like two pass situations.
Mm-hmm.
The Chargers were all over it. So it's like we are trying to get we're trying to get into our bag that we don't have pretty much.
Yeah, fair
And
enough.
it sounds like Derek Carr is practicing this week, so we'll see how we play against. I don't know who we got next, but
Let me check for you.
perfect. I don't know who we got next, but I think with Derek Carr back, that's going to help out the offensive side of things. But then if we do play offensively, but like our defense still struggles, that just shows me that the coaching is just not there.
Sure.
And I wouldn't be upset with a complete rebranding of the coaching staff because it just seems like we are not performing at the level we should be at.
So, do you have anybody in mind that you'd want to be your head coach?
Not a clue. I don't know the coaching carousel that well, but
to be fair, there's still the rest of the year, so that coaching carousel could get really interesting come here back half of the season. But
that's a really good point. I don't know who I would even want to fill that position, or if like we should just change our OC and DC, but something needs to fix at the Saints, and it is not. Dennis Allen's just pretty much not our go-to guy.
Sure,
in my
fair
opinion.
enough. To your question, the Saints play the Panthers, and that is next Sunday. So
if we lose, I swear to God, I will probably drink myself silly because I have nothing else to do. Like the Panthers, if we even have a close game to them, I'm going to be upset because they are rebuilding. Panthers have just been struggling all year. That should be an easy game.
I don't know, man. Outside of the Browns, I think the Panthers might be. I think they might be the saddest team in the NFL right now, and I'm not even saying that for like fans or anything, like trying to like garner respect or anything. I'm saying that from the perspective of like if you look at them, they just have problems. And I think it's one of those. I think it's an ownership thing.
Actually, yeah, good point.
I mean, I think it's an ownership thing. Like, there's a video of, I think his name's Jake Tepper. I think there's a video of him on the internet at one of the games. I think it was last year. It didn't happen this year, where he got really angry because like there was a fan, I guess, chirping him. And I'm saying this could be 100% out of context type of stuff like that. There was a fan chirping him, and he threw a drink on him, and I'm like, dog, you are the owner. Like, you can't do that.
You can't act like that.
You can't do that.
No.
There was another game, and I think this was before that we. I guess I don't know how much you got to watch of the NFL yesterday.
Quite a bit.
Okay. So maybe you'll have more insight because, like I said, I'm honestly not trying to rub this in. It was impressive as hell to me that we got to play golf at the end of October. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
But I was curious if you got to watch any of the Bills and the Seahawks game because that looked like a thrashing.
I didn't get to watch the game, but I did see the highlights of it, and yeah, like the Bills just kind of showed up to play. Like last time I was on here, I said, like the Bills, I feel like they're just gonna have an off week, but that's because Josh Allen came off of like a really bad game. I think Josh Allen woke up. All the Bills played a good game. Seahawks just kind of looked like outplayed, in every aspect. The defense couldn't stop a nosebleed, and their offense couldn't get anything rolling.
Yeah, I was gonna say, looking at the stat line, the Josh Allen had a pretty good game, really good game actually. But that's been the question for me with the Seahawks is like a lot of people are like, oh, the Seahawks look really, really good this year. They look like, and they could be. I guess I haven't really watched them, but like at the same time, like looking at their record and just kind of looking at how they've won games, some of them have been close. Which there's nothing inherently wrong with that. Good teams find a way to win, right? But on the flip side of that, it's like, but they haven't, to me, consistently won to decisively enough to where it's like they might be good, but I don't think they're great this year.
Yeah, they're kind of like Nebraska in that sense. They haven't played like a full game yet, Like
yes, exactly.
They start off strong or they end strong, but that first half or that second half, they just all wheels fall off. And I feel bad for her because I do like the Seahawks. One of my roommates is a Seahawks fan, but as he stated this year, he's really not because he didn't expect much from them.
Well, and this is the first year under a new head coach for them. So, I mean,
It's unfortunate, but like Geno Smith is still playing really good. Like, he's impressed me this year. I kind of thought he was going to be like one of those average quarterbacks, but he's been putting up pretty good stats. I got to give it to him. I don't know what they got for a wide receiver core other than DK, but yeah, he's finding options. He's finding, like, what was his last stat line? Like 21 for 29 with
against the Bills.
Yeah. He went 21 for 29, 200 yards.
This is one of those moments. This is one of those moments where you can safely say, like, Geno is not the problem. He's been playing. I mean, since he got his contract, has he been playing potentially worth his contract? Depends. I mean, I don't know exactly what his contract is. There's certainly an argument to be made to where it's like, maybe he is, maybe he isn't. We don't know. But he hasn't been playing it's not that it's a Deshaun Watson thing where he's playing so bad that it's not worth the money that they're spending on him. But
right. It also looks like they don't really have a running back core.
Which is shocking because this is the same place the Legion of Boom came from.
Like, I'm looking at their stats. 16 yards from Geno Smith from 5 carries. 9 carries for Kenneth Walker, and he got 12 yards. 3 carries for Zach, and he got 4 yards. When you can only pass the ball, it's pretty easy for the defense to know what the fuck you're going to do next play. So,
yeah, like, fair enough.
It's like, what can you do if you can't run the ball?
Well, yeah. And I don't know, maybe I'm just simple when it comes to my football knowledge, but there's a lot of times where, and this is before you even came on, where I've argued 100% where it's like, to me, sometimes head coaches just need to keep it simple, where if it's, I guess that's a good example of like what the Eagles did on Sunday. They got the ball back at the back half or in the last 8 minutes of the fourth quarter, and they were up by 10 points, I think, something like that. And they ran the ball. They had to pass it. And it was weird because you could see what they were doing. They were killing clock, and it was just like the Bengals knew that's what they were going to do, and they were still able to do it successfully. And to me, it was like the Eagles found, at least in that game, they found that thing that worked for them, that they knew they could just basically run against their will. There were 2 parts of that drive that I saw that they ran on first and 10. And like, you could tell, it was like, oh, yep, Saquon's in. It's going to go to him up the middle. And the offensive line for the Eagles went right up the middle, and it worked. And he got like 5 yards. And then they did it again. And he got like 8 yards. And then they did it again later. And it's like, there was no problem with the Eagles running. And to me, I'm like, that's good. Like, yes, it's working. Keep doing it until the defense says, oh, nope, it's not working. Now, granted, I'm not saying run that same play 3 times on a drive. If you get 1st and 10, run the same play 3 times because it's working until it doesn't. Right. I'm saying running is working. Don't go away from it. Don't all of a sudden decide you're going to throw a 40-yard pass down the sideline and all that jazz. And they didn't.
That kind of plays into the Saints playbook too. Like, we're trying to get too fancy when we just physically cannot. Like, like I said with that like double triple pass, like, what are we doing? We have a 5-star running back, and we're just not using him. Like, we're trying to, but
it's weird too, because it's really weird too, because like Kamara he's been a 5-star running back. And it's like, he hasn't really lost too many steps. Like, he's older, so he's not prime Kamara, but he's not bad.
Yeah,
so it's crazy.
He can still get you like 5-6 yards chunk plays.
Real quick, by the way, because we said we're going to do this, as of this recording, 4-0 Dodgers, bottom of the 6th. So
go Dodgers.
I'm not mad about that.
Nah, I think as of right now, it seems like the Dodgers have the lead. But so Andy, now it's your turn. Jett and I got to talk
I'll quickly.
all sorts.
Yeah,
about it, but
I can't wait to listen back to
go for
For those
that maybe are not watching the video. If you're just watching, Andy had to go for a little bit, so Jett and I had to take over for a bit.
I'm actually very intrigued to listen back to it.
So it was really just a lot of Saints talk, to be honest.
There was a lot to fucking say, unfortunately.
I know Jett needed to vent about his team, so
nah, he did. He did good.
I needed that.
That's why it was good. Yeah, like Denver beat Carolina, which they should have done. I mean, that was not. If they had lost, that would have been the definition of a trap game for Denver. It's kind of started out that way. They were down 7-0. Panthers scored on their first drive, and I was like, "Oh God, what's going to happen?" Then the defense stepped up, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, the Panthers are not good at all." Bo Nix, again, it's the Panthers, so you take what you want out of that. But I mean, he had a stellar game in terms of just doing what he needed to do. 284 yards, 3 touchdowns. I mean, you say what you want about him, but I think right now he's kind of tied first with Jaden Daniels in terms of rookie stats of quarterback of passing yards, touchdowns, completions, kind of so on and so forth. But again, all of this is with a grain of salt in terms of who they have played the past 2 games in terms of the Saints, Jett, and the Panthers.
That was a rough game to watch. I ain't gonna
lie. I mean, I had fun. I'm not gonna say I didn't have fun. I had fun.
You did. I bet you did.
But it's nice to see that game 7, game 8, going into game 8, I should say, for Denver. This was game 8. That you're starting to see the game slow down for Bo a little bit. You're starting to see him develop, read his options. He's not speeding up his throws. He's kind of working on his pocket presence, his footwork, and Denver's doing a lot better play designs as they're realizing that Bo's very mobile. So kind of scheme up your play. So they're doing a lot more bootleg play actions, getting him out of pocket, getting the defense to move. So just the way there's not a receiver open, Bo can take off and he's got the legs to do it. But yeah, fun game to watch them beat Carolina. Now, this is arguably probably the toughest part of Denver's schedule right now is these next 3 games where you get back-to-back road games against Baltimore and Kansas City right now. Obviously, 2 of the better teams in the AFC right now. So those are going to be, these are the games that Denver, and I know Sean Payton had said it during his post game and even during the practice today, it's like these are the games that you get to live up to. You want to play in these big primetime games against top tier playoff caliber teams in the NFL. Like these are the games that you want to get up and go play. And then after that, they get Atlanta back at home. Atlanta, after sweeping Tampa, is in the sole driver's seat right now for the NFC South. So it's a rough stretch for Denver. Honestly, my best guess is they'll probably come 1-2 out of that stretch, just with the hope that they beat the Falcons. But I think if they come 2-1 out of this next 3-game stretch, I mean, that's going to be a win for Denver, depending on who that one loss is. But if you somehow to try to find 2 wins out of these next 3 games in terms of who you're playing, I think that's going to be a big step for Denver, big step for Bo, and just kind of getting him more developed as a rookie quarterback, and hopefully my franchise quarterback for quite some time. I would love that, but the defense is going to be there for Denver. Can the offense continue to play well with what the defense is throwing out and pitching a shutout? I know during this game yesterday, they showed a stat of Denver's defense compared to last year, compared to this year. They were bottom, 5 of the league last year in terms of sacks, pressures, points given up, so on and so forth. And now they're in the top 3 of all those categories. And a year change around. So Vance Joseph's definitely got the defense back where Denver needs it to be, while the offense kind of still continues to figure out how to be efficient with Bo. But it's a step in the right direction. But yeah, these next 3 games for Denver are definitely going to be just a telltale sign of where this team is right now and the direction that they're going for the rest of the season. And that seems like their playoff hopes hinge on these next 3 games. But, certainly getting 2 wins out of these next 3 is going to be huge just for their playoff chances going forward. Because right now they're 5th in terms of the AFC playoff standings. And I know it's only week 8, but for a team that was only projected...
That's about halfway, though.
Yeah. And for a team that was projected 5.5 wins for the season.
Guys, we're about halfway through the NFL
Yeah,
season.
both NFL
Regular season.
and a little over in college football. But yeah, for Denver, that was projected 5.5 wins. They're already at 5 wins for the season. I mean, they just need one more, and you smash the over on that. So, for low expectations, they're doing really well.
So real quick, Andy, this is kind of a spoiler of the part that you missed, but this is something that I did say. And Jett can attest to this, or he can at least correct me if I'm wrong on what I say. But I said something to the effect of that it seems like Sean Payton, like last year was a bit of a rough year for Denver, but it took a bit, and then this year, slow start. Seems like he's getting it figured out. It's like things are starting to kind of hit the groove.
If he wants to come back to the Saints, I'll gladly take him.
That's what it was. That's what it was in reference to. Is if the Saints were to get rid of Dennis Allen in the middle of the season, where what do you consider a reasonable turnaround? Where last year with Sean Payton, known head coach, didn't come in necessarily and turn it around. But this year, so far, knocking on wood, I'm not trying to jinx your team, I promise. But he seems like things are in the right direction. Maybe this year isn't necessarily the year to call it that, but next year is where you're like, okay, so that's 3 years under Sean Payton. But so I wanted to see if you kind of agreed, if you felt the same way.
I mean, my expectations and what their expectations are probably different. Obviously, their expectations are going to be playoff, Super Bowl. You're not going to tell your team like, oh, I just want to finish above 500. But like, my expectations are just finish above 500. They haven't had a winning season above 500 since they won the Super Bowl back in 2016. So, or 2015, one of the two. That's like, those are my expectations, is like, just have a winning season for once. Like, just even if it's 9-8 or 8-9 or no, not 8-9, that would be the reverse. But yeah, just even if it's a game above 500, just like end with a winning record, even if it is just a game above 500. And obviously Sean is not going to say that. He's going to say, yeah, we want to get to the playoffs, we want to win Super Bowl, we want to beat these teams. But from like a casual, I'm not a casual fan, but for like a Denver fan, just have a winning season. Just give us like something to go into the offseason about, like, instead of talking about, who their dreaded top round pick, first draft round pick is going to be, just like, all right, we built off momentum for this winning season for once. Now let's go get the pieces to make it even a better winning season next year type thing. If they don't, make the playoffs this year or anything like that. But generally, if you have a winning playoff, like a winning record, you're right on that fringe of getting that last wild card spot, depending on how your division does, or just, getting 7th or 6th seed in the AFC. So yeah, those are my expectations, and I'll be happy with the winning record. And I know I probably said that prior to the season, but they're doing more than I thought they would be doing right now. I thought they would have probably 2 to 3 wins by this point, just because the offense was so unknown, and the defense, how they played last year, it's like they could play like this again, type thing. So it's been a fun ride so far, and I know a lot of people don't like Sean Payton. Jett obviously loves him for what he did in the Rams, but I know Nate doesn't. I know Tyson doesn't. And a lot of just his personality, Bounty Gate was obviously a big factor in all of that. But it's the guy. He's a proven winner, and definitely how Denver experimented last year with Nathaniel Hackett, and like, let's get an up and coming young coach, and that went down the drain. Not last year, 2 years ago, but that went down the drain real quick. I was like, all right, yeah, I'll be on this train of getting a young new head coach like Matt LaFleur, Sean McVay, get somebody in those guys that's young enough, rise up in the ranks. And Denver tried that, it went south real bad. And I was like, all right, let's get somebody that's a proven winner, and that's Sean. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, he's just going to make another Drew Brees or try to make Bo Nix like Drew Brees. In a sense, I mean, if it works, it works.
Worked.
Yeah, it worked. It worked. But Drew Brees is not as mobile as Bo Nix is. So there's definitely a better aspect of what you can incorporate in Bo's offense, and that mobility. It's kind of like what the Ravens do with Lamar, is you could do different concepts where like you can trust him to get out of the pocket and scramble and make plays. Not that Denver's running a read option like Baltimore is, but regardless, those were my expectations. And Denver playing Baltimore this Sunday, it's just going to be a fun game, just to see kind of what Denver's defense, their top tier defense, is against an offense like Baltimore right now. And then how does Denver respond on offense to, Baltimore's defense is not that great. They haven't been great all year, considering what Jameis just did to them. But, they're probably going to be a pissed off team wanting to bounce back. And Denver's on a two win streak right now. So it's going to be a fun game regardless.
Could be. Yeah, I was going to say, should be a good game.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've hammered away on NFL for a while, but we're going to do something a little different, I feel like, because we talked about it earlier. We're going to go to NCAA football, but we're going to start with the Husker season, with the Husker game, I think.
I say there wasn't really much to talk about in terms of the general top 25. Other than
I will say one thing.
Other than LSU choking at College Station.
Well, outside of that, I was going to say, I know Indiana just beat us hardcore last week, but the fact they're still only 13 as of yesterday is shocking. But we'll get to that. Starting with the Husker game. So all four of us, Nate's not here, but we can speak for him in that case. All four of us noted Husker fans having quite a bit more, I think, optimism coming out of that Ohio State game. Mm-hmm. Now, the questions certainly can be like, did Ohio State just not prepare for us the way they should have or whatever? But Nebraska went up against number 4 in the country and only lost by 4 when they were a 25-point dog.
Yep.
You know what?
And the buck, 25-26, but
I mean, either way, Nebraska
beat the spread again. Fuck yeah.
Nebraska showed up.
We did in every game but Indiana.
Yeah, we straight up. I don't.
True.
I still ask the question of what happened against Indiana. It just looks like Nebraska just didn't show up against them at all.
I mean, based on how Saturday went, absolutely Indiana. I chalking that up to a fluke game.
100%.
Even if it wasn't a fluke game, whatever happened, it seems like going from previous years, maybe not necessarily last year's Matt Rule team as the specific example, but like 2 years ago with Scott Frost teams and such beyond that. Those teams in that scenario after the Indiana loss would have given up against Ohio State probably before the first quarter was over. The Nebraska team we saw at halftime, I remember texting both Andy and Nate this. I said, this Nebraska team is different. We just came off a straight ass beating against Indiana, a team that, by all accounts, if we would have showed up like we did against Ohio State, we would have probably had a much better chance. Not necessarily a win, much better chance. But we saw a Nebraska team that was just as angry as we were as fans after Indiana, and almost went out and beat number 4 in the country. Now, there's all sorts of questions that can be around it. We talked a lot about the refereeing issue and just a general football sense. There were quite a few plays in the Nebraska game, and this is not me being a Nebraska homer. There were a couple even that Nebraska got away with against Ohio State. And it's just like, it was officially announced too. I don't know if you guys saw this. The one that was called a targeting call has now since been rescinded. Yeah. Which I was fine with. Looking at it, I was like, I don't know if I'd call it necessarily. I mean, it kind of was, but he hit it with his shoulder. I was like, I get it. I'm fine. I was okay with that one. But then I sent the video, I think, to you and Nate. Andy, was just the clip of the different. Again, I'm not the guy that says the referees are out to get us. But that clip that I sent to you guys, where there were just a lot of plays, and again, they're human, they're going to miss some of these things, but it's like there's no consistency. Right. And that I think is the big question mark in this game. I think especially going into halftime with the spot of the ball, because I remember asking as I was watching the game, I was like, why are we running the clock down so much when we still have like 40 yards to go or whatever? It was even more than that, I think. I was like, why is the clock still running when we got that first down? Like, I understood like why the clock was running, but it's like, why is it running so much?
I can forgive the judgment calls on penalties because those are judgment calls. The one thing I cannot excuse of the officiating of that game was that spot foul, and then the second spot foul on the goal line play where I thought Jalen Lloyd got to like the 1 yard line and they marked him at like the 2.5, 3 yard line on that end
Yes, that's fair.
But yeah, the more egregious of the two was that one at the end of the half where Emmett clearly got the first down by like 2 yards. And then it was like, we were all thinking it too. I was like, all right, the clock should stop to move the chains. Nebraska's going to get up and, move the ball. And I'm like, the clock is still going. And then all of a sudden it's 3rd and 1. I'm like, whoa. Like he got the first down. And then like Joe Klein and Gus Johnson were also like, no, they kept showing the replay and they're like, he's like, Gus, like he's 2 yards past the line to like the first down. Like he clearly got the first down. And at the end of that, the ref on that side came down on the first down line to spot the ball. Like he was clearly at the first down line, if not past it. And then it was 3rd and 1. So it's like that is the point where replay needs to step in and say, hey, we need to look at the spot of this ball. But and nobody ever did. And the clock, and then reset it. Or somebody, and this is also Nebraska's like issue, is somebody who's on Nebraska side that's looking up that replay in the booth needs to signal down to Matt Rule saying, hey, challenge the spot. Like they got it wrong on our end. Emmett's got the first down and they spotted it short. So like it goes both ways to where the refs, the replay should have reviewed it, but also somebody on Nebraska's side needs to tell Matt Rule that like, hey, go challenge this play, go talk to them about the spot and get them to try to review this or something like that. So Agreed. It goes both ways. And the goal line one is like, that one's a little bit harder, but like that first down at the end of the half is like inexcusable for them to miss that.
That one only upset me because had he got the first down, that would have stopped the clock, would have given them a chance to do whatever they were going to do.
Well, like 20 seconds ran off. Yeah.
Yeah, we would have had like 50 seconds or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And we were driving. Like we were driving really well.
And
we could have, I don't know if we would have necessarily taken the lead. I think we would have maybe tied it up. No, we would have gotten close. Whatever, regardless. It's like.
And Rule said today during his presser, it's like, in those moments, you're expecting, to get the first down, the chain to move, the clock to stop. And as a play caller, you're going through your situations of like, all right, this many plays, like this much time left. I have this amount of plays. I have these sets of plays that I can run in this type of situation. And then you look up and it's like 30 seconds, 25 seconds after you're like, whoa. Well, like what happened to those extra 25, 30 seconds that we should have had to run these plays? And then all of a sudden, as a play caller, you switch now. It's like, oh, now I have 20 seconds to run maybe 2 plays instead of maybe 4 or 5 extra more if you get to the sideline out of bounds. And Nebraska still had a timeout at that point too. So you definitely, instead of working it to get 20, 30 more yards closer to an end zone, you're now stuck with having to run maybe 2 more plays to get a little bit closer and use your timeout to get a field goal. And at that point of the game, we were still unsure if John Hull was going to make that field goal. He made one, but we hadn't seen.
That was a long field goal regardless.
Yes.
Though.
I mean, it was 56 yards or something. And we'll get to what John Hull said of like, we'll get to special teams here in a second, but yeah, Rule said like that changes your situation as a play caller and as a head coach of your situational football that you have to run in that moment. And it's 50 seconds of you not getting to do what you want to do to try to score a touchdown. And we'll never know if Nebraska would have scored a touchdown at that point. It's just kind of like the Minnesota game is you don't know if they would have drove 97 yards. Like we don't know if Nebraska would have drove the other 40 yards, but they were driving in that moment, as you said, Zach. So it's tough to know how exactly that would have played out. Unfortunately, we made the kick, so not all was totally lost. We didn't come out of that situation with no points, but
we'll get to that. I was going to say, Jett, any initial thoughts?
I guess the only thing that you guys haven't mentioned that I was happy to see was our rush defense. Holding them to like 60 some yards or whatever it was very impressive to me. I was very happy with our field goal kicking and like how we responded to Indiana. But, coming from Indiana where we lost that record of not having a rushing touchdown pretty badly to turning around to only allowing 50, 60 yards was huge to me.
You held 2 NFL caliber backs to 64 total yards, I think.
Like,
I mean, that's an impressive turnaround
the
from the
fact they
defense.
couldn't move is just, it was so surprising to me. And it's kind of like what Zach said. It's like, like during that Scott Frost era, like, we didn't know what we were going to get. So, like, just seeing that and seeing us bounce back and actually wanting to play and prove a point was so refreshing for me because we haven't got that for years.
Well, and I think Dylan in his press conference made a comment to that effect where he said, "I'm really proud of where this team is going." And I
Facts.
know this is 100% a bold statement, but I feel like that game, I feel like we've said this a lot on our podcast. I will say that. But that one, I'm not going to say the corner is turned. However, that felt like the final tide where it's like, okay, we still have some rough patches to get through. We know that. Like, we're not necessarily going to be world beaters the rest of the year. However, we just played Ohio State. We know what we can be. We know what we almost were. We almost won that game. Like, you can't take that away. But we're not quite there yet. But we're dang close.
Yes.
And it's like that game proved two things. Like you said, I think the Indiana game, if it's not a fluke, I don't know what you call it, but it's got to be something to the effect of fluky. Indiana can also be good. Two things can be true there. But then also that we are a good team. And we're just still figuring out how to put those pieces together.
Yeah.
And I think we figured out that the thing that really does it is special teams. And that's where I think we should start. Because, guys, I think we have a kicker.
I know that we had talked about, at least you, Nate and Isaac, and I sent like Steven Sipple's tweet prior to the game kickoff as he was watching John Hull, making 50, 60 yarders in pregame. So like there's not a question or doubt, especially now what we know when he made those 3 kicks is John Hull's got the leg. It was, and I know I sent this exact text. It's like, all right, we have a kicker. The issue with the field goal unit was the snap, the block, and the hold. The other 3 aspects,
everything else
but the kicker. And that 56-yarder he had before half, he easily had 5-10 more yards on that kick.
That could have straight up been an Alex Henry kick.
Yeah, like it's the minute when that ball hit the net. I mean, it was probably a good 20, 30 feet above the bottom of the goalpost, the bottom bar.
It had.
So, I mean, he still had at least 5 more yards on that kick.
He is 100%. I mean, unless Tristan Alvano can be like, I can kick a 70-yarder.
And all 3 of those kicks,
starter.
Yeah, all 3 of those kicks, the minute they went up, there was no, this might sneak in left, right. I mean, they were up and they were dead down the middle.
Which was
crazy. There was no worry. Those were stress-free kicks. And those were, I know everybody else was stressing. Yeah.
There was, after I was stressing like crazy on the first one. And then I saw it happen.
I think we all were. And then we all saw
we saw it happen. And then we're just like, I'm pretty sure that's what I did. I think I like what I just did there. I think I just stared for 5 seconds where I was like, he made that. What? I just kind of stopped and I was like, he made that. And then every other kick that came after that, I was like, and that's what I had said too. I was like, that was the confidence that he needed, where it's like, okay, I can do it. We can do it. And so in every kick after that, he was just like, I got it. Now, granted, because then didn't Ohio State miss a kick though too?
He missed it wide right. Like it was up and there wasn't even a chance that thing was going back in. It was up and it was right the entire way.
So it's I don't know.
Obviously we were stressing.
Teams, yeah, but I
all 3 of those kicks, the minute they were up, you're like, oh yeah, that's in. Like not a shot that they were going anywhere but in. And that's like they were stress free in that moment of like they're going in, but we were all stressed. I'm sure John Hull was like, oh, I know I can make these kicks. It's like, can the snap be right? Can the hold be right? Can the blocking by the line after the snap be right? And all 3 of them were.
And I think that kind of plays to the effect of like what Matt Rule is doing. So going back to like our reaction after the Indiana loss, we all kind of felt like, oh, it's a Scott Frost era again. It was last week, but I think this week it wasn't, because we saw not only the team respond, we saw players respond. And specifically him,
absolutely.
I give John Hole, like, if I was going to pick an MVP of the game, like 2 weeks ago was Brian Buccini. This week, to me, would be John Hole. Yes, we didn't win, but he went out there and proved, and they even said it on the broadcast. He's like, he's coming out here, he's 1-5, and he's going to kick a 56-yard field goal.
Mm-hmm.
And then he made it. And it's like, like you said, Andy, that proves that he was not the problem. At least in this case, let's call one of them his problem. You know what I mean? Like, let's say one of them was. The point being, though, is that we've seen not just the team, but we've seen players respond. And yeah, obviously, John Hole has not had the greatest kicking
execution.
Yeah, he hasn't had the greatest luck at this point and all that. He still went out and he not only did he hit a 56-yard field goal, he hit everything else he was asked to hit after that.
Right.
And so he responded. The defense definitely responded. I mean, I really have no real notes player-wise.
Mm-hmm.
I have some other stuff to bring up. We'll get there.
No, we all know.
I would say, you know what? I guess, correct me if I'm wrong. Special teams played really well. Had a couple flubs, but we responded well. Defense played freaking lights out, basically, except for the one drive after we scored the touchdown to go up. But I still give them grace on that one because they had been playing a lot. They were probably tired. They shouldn't really have given it up, but I feel like that was going to happen anyway. It is Ohio State. They've got NFL caliber receivers and probably an NFL quarterback at some point here. Offense, player-wise, played well. They did what they could. I think the key point that we're taking from this game, and correct me if I'm wrong, is play calling.
Yeah. Dylan's ankle is not an issue, as we all saw. I know that after kind of the Indiana game, there was still some speculation of like he's not really like leaning or like planting his foot to throw into throw. So like, is there something wrong with his ankle or anything like that? And this game was like the game that he ran the most out of all of them this year. Just the ability, and they weren't even like, maybe one was a design run, but all the other runs he had, especially that 38-yard run that he had, was all just nobody's open. I see this green space, I'm going to take off. And he's obviously not the fastest kid in the world, but it didn't look like he was running on a bum ankle or like, limping after that or anything like that. So all that talk about his ankle being, injured or anything like that, I mean, he proved that it wasn't. Still has some issues with, the having too much touch on his passes. Certainly missed Banks on that probably touchdown pass. I know just Shakori open in the end zone on the one we did eventually score on. So it all worked out there. But and we've seen that a couple times. Dylan just, maybe he's focusing too much on the mechanics of just putting too much touch or too much, loft into the ball instead of just getting the ball to the guy type thing. So
freshman quarterback is the one thing that I feel like we all have to remember is that he's still playing very well, but he's only a freshman.
Yes.
Imagine as he grows.
Yes. And this is like me nitpicking something too nitpicky.
No. I understand that. I'm saying just in a general sense.
Yes. And, besides the interception he had at the end, and Rule got on Nair that entire game. I mean, I don't think that was a route that Nair was supposed to run at the end either, considering where Dylan threw the ball. Nair was still going a straight seam, and Dylan threw that back in, thinking Nair was going to get to his post and then cut back in right where the safety was. And then there was a play earlier in the game where Dylan threw it over, and Nair was like not even looking for the ball. Then Rule came up and was like yelling at Nair to like, were you running the wrong route, like communication, so on and so forth. So I still think there is some sort of communication issues between the play calls and with the receivers and what they're supposed to run, or, Dylan maybe not throwing it to the right route either. All of the above. I don't know. And I'm still kind of iffy on the Garrett McGuire wide receiver coach too. I still think there are some issues there in terms of coaching, and definitely coaching perimeter blocking. I mean, that's 100% an issue. 100% an issue. And you saw in the first half, those throws to Banks' side on those perimeter blocks, those screens, he absolutely got blown up. In the second half, then they started throwing more to Isaiah's side, and he was actually holding some of his blocks there. So they switched it up, and yeah, I think we got to talk about Satterfield. I mean, I will give him credit. First half scheme versus second half scheme, very different. I think in the second half, you saw a lot more motion. You saw a lot more of, the things that we saw against Purdue, where you're running more jet sweeps, you're getting Barney more involved on motion and so on and so forth. And that Nebraska had started to run the ball a lot more in the second half and was having success with it too. So I think that did help a lot. But yeah, it's when do you realize as a play caller that screens don't work?
After the third or fourth one doesn't work.
After you get blown up for a tackle. I mean, I think in the first half, the Ohio State probably had 6 or 7 tackles for a loss, and almost all of them were because of screen passes.
Yep.
And it's not because of like, oh, we get blown up at the line on a run play. It's because we can't hold a block on the perimeter. Or if we do run a screen pass like we did on that last drive, where the minute Dylan throws the ball, Emmett gets hit immediately, and you have 3 linemen in front of Emmett that don't pick up the one guy that's coming at him. It's like
that was the worst part about watching the screen passes to me. And then I'm gonna pass this off to Jett because he looks like he's got thoughts. But like the linemen who going into the season, we were all like, oh, we think they're gonna be pretty good, but there's still questions like, can they perform? When it came to the screen passes, they did exactly what they were supposed to do. They basically just like let the guys collapse down so then Dylan could make the pass over them. It was perfect. The problem is that the receivers that were supposed to be blocking weren't doing their jobs. Now, that wasn't every play, but it was just like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
but
bad.
Jett's got thoughts.
Bad all around.
Like, you guys kind of touched on all of it. Like, screen passes did work, but the fact it was, what, 2nd and 17, 3rd and 17, and out of our whole entire playbook, he's like, let's throw another goddamn screen. It honestly just kind of puts the blame on him. Like, if we would have called anything else and Dylan would have thrown a pick, probably would have chalked it up to Dylan being a freshman quarterback. But the fact you called a screen there when we needed to get 20-some yards, like, what are you thinking? What are we doing? Obviously, they've blown it up 6-7 times, and we're going to do it again. I just don't understand. I don't understand what we're thinking.
I don't think any of us do.
Like, I don't know. I was so happy with how we played, and I was very happy that we actually had a chance to win it. I was just very disappointed with how we went about that final drive, and it just left a sour taste in my mouth. Like, yeah, we shouldn't have been 4 points down, but that's not the attempt we should have tried, in my opinion.
Yes, and I agree with you at that point too, Jett, is say what you want about the officiating in that game. Yes, it was bad all around. Both sides got host on calls. Nebraska 100%. Benefited, and Ohio State benefited on both sides. Regardless,
maybe they're more consistent than we thought then.
Yes, maybe. Well, Nebraska got host more than Ohio State, but Ohio State did get host on some calls too. But you take all that out of the equation. You go back to the goal line stand after Malcolm's interception. 4 plays, all running plays that maybe gained a yard.
All of
the gut. That is a situation where you become too predictable, where Ohio State knows what you're going to run before you even call the play because you don't change it up. I like the idea
on TV too. Yes. Before you go too far, you could see it on TV where they would collapse in the middle, where all they would have had to do is be like, hey, we're going to run up the middle. And then all, like, in my head, it's like whoever was the running back, whoever they had in there, have them counter like they're going to go left, cut back right, pop that bad boy out to the left. At least the one play I remember specifically where they could have done it because it was open, and run it in.
Yes. And that
could have worked.
Yes. And that is one thing that is Satterfield as a scheme play caller in that moment, you need to recognize. I didn't have a problem with bringing Ty Robinson in for that play for a fullback. The issue is Ohio State knows why he's going to be brought in and knows exactly what type of play you're going to run. So if you're going to do that, then you do, like you said, do a naked bootleg out to the left. Have Dylan do a play action like you're running out, have him keep the ball, run a naked bootleg out to the left, and maybe you have a tight end pull off so that, if it's one-on-one coverage, Dylan can either throw it to the guy or, pump fake, and then he just walks in with the touchdown. I mean, that's what I would have loved to have seen, is just some sort of naked bootleg, roll out to the left where you get the defense all going right, thinking you're running up the middle, and then Dylan just
Literally
pulls out.
anything different than it.
Anything
left, right,
yes.
up middle.
And that is the detriment to Marcus Satterfield right now is, yes, I know you're running an offense with a true freshman quarterback, but you are becoming a little too predictable now, 8 games into the season, where teams see that on film and know, oh, when they're in this package, this is all they're running, because they're not going to audible. They're not going to do different designs out of this. And that goal line stand where you had a chance to take a lead again, that became too predictable for Ohio State. And they knew exactly what they were going to run. And they just stacked the box and said, if you're going to do this 4 times in a row, you try to score on us, when we're going to try to do this. And we didn't. So,
yeah.
And that's, like I said, he did change it up in the second half. He did run some more motion and some different schemes when Nebraska was running the ball better. But like, that is the type of situational coaching that needs to be fixed from Satterfield. And that's what you use the bye week for, which clearly they didn't do at all. But that's when you go into your bye week and you're like, all right, these are the base packages we can run. But what else can we do out of these base packages that'll make teams think we're doing this, but we're actually doing a different play type thing. So that was the part that irked me, was like, they didn't try a single pass in that situation. And yes, I know we've scored on 4th and 1 from the 1-yard line before in 2 separate games, but that's against Purdue and that's against Rutgers. That's not against Ohio State type thing. And you're going to have to be better than them to do that. And we weren't on that drive. So yeah, it's, again, you take all of the officiating out, you take everything out of what went both ways. The fact of the matter is Nebraska had 2 to 3 different chances in that second half to win the football game. And we just couldn't get over that hump offensively because of what we were calling on offense and the schemes that we were trying to do and everything. And Ohio State was going to let us win that game. I mean, you take into the drive that after they scored, Nebraska went back on offense and we punted away. That last drive Ohio State had before the kneel down, we stopped them on a 3-and-out. Ohio State easily could have done what they did on the previous drive and just torched us on the field and just ran down and scored again. But they went back to the offense that they had played like in the first half, where like they were just kind of content of not doing anything else. And I'm like, they're giving this game to you. Just go and take it. And that's like the frustrating part of this whole game, is Nebraska had their chances to win this game when Ohio State had no business of playing with their food in that game, and Nebraska just couldn't take an opportunity to seize that moment. But it's all things
far better scenario than we've had for years.
Yes,
so you know
absolutely.
what? Like,
true.
We've at this point, I feel like we've kind of exhausted it all. Like we're not necessarily nitpicking in terms of like Satterfield. I do think there's be a lot of scrutiny the rest of the year if he doesn't.
Right.
Well, he's not like, obviously. And quite frankly, I'll put my hand up. I don't know if we do, because there's been a couple times where it's like he does have some decent schemes and they've worked. And like we are, I think, past the peak of the schedule with the rest of the way our schedule looks. Not to say that the rest of the teams we can overlook, but I think I think to me, this is where we kind of transition into, let's talk about our picks for UCLA, because now I think we finally got, like I said, I think there's I don't want to call it a turning point or turning the corner or anything like that, but I do think we finally are starting to see that this Nebraska team is different. And yes, Indiana was a shitty one to lose. No doubt about it. But on the flip side, they responded against Ohio State of all teams.
Yes.
And who knows, maybe some people are being like, oh, Ohio State was far overranked. Could be, but they weren't when we played them. They were number 4. So,
and I know if whatever happened on Saturday happened 2 Saturdays ago, my outlook for the next 4 games would be much grimmer, much more bleak than they are right now. If we were having the same conversation we were having last week again today, then yeah, I would be like, hey, maybe we'll go 1-3 these next 3 games. But the fact that what they did on Saturday is what Matt Rule considered championship football, they just didn't get the result, is absolutely, they need to come out again like that on Saturday against UCLA and do the exact same thing and just against a more inferior opponent. You're not playing the number 4 team in the nation now. So all that said, I still need to see something from the offense that gives me hope that they're going to score more than 21. I think this Saturday they will do it. And UCLA is definitely they're like a weird team in terms of I know their record doesn't show it, but I mean they have the offensive guys. I mean their quarterback is he's very mistake prone, but he's got as many passing yards as almost as Dylan right now. It's as many touchdowns as Dylan right now, and Dylan's for what he's been. I mean he's been good, but he's also been average at times, type thing. So. It should be a game Nebraska will win, should win, needs to win, all of the above type of adjectives you want to throw in there. Because one, you have a chance to go bowling for the first time since 2016. And I know I texted you and Zach, or you and Nate this, Zach, that Nebraska's trying to do too many demon cleansing all at once. They were trying, you're trying to get that road a ranked win against Ohio State. You're trying to get a ranked win at the same time. You're trying to do the bowling at the same time. You're trying to do all of these things at once to rebuild you what you want to be back. At this moment, Nebraska just needs to address one demon at the time. And this next big demon right now is staring at you Saturday of a bowl game.
Get the bowl game.
You get the bowl game, guys can start to relax. I mean, they're not going to let up and, carefree the rest of the way and lose the next 3. But you can finally say, okay, step back, deep breath. We got that win. Now let's go tackle the other issues. And then you can start talking about, you start building up to your ranked wins. You start building up to, more winning streaks, so on and so forth. So first things first is UCLA getting that 6th win, and then you move on to the next demon you need to address in the program. I think Nebraska gets it done Saturday. I do think the defense has another stellar, spectacular game, and I do think the offense does pick it up again. I think the line right now, it opened up at like 9.5. It's like back down to 7 now. And that's probably just more money coming on UCLA just from the public side. But I think Nebraska does win this one 31-10. I think the offense has a stellar game. I think the defense does its part, and knowing what we know about our kicker now, I do think we can actually throw field goal scores back in there again and not just straight up touchdowns.
It's crazy how field goals keep you in the game.
Yeah.
It's kind of nuts.
Even if my prediction doesn't come out on top, I still think Nebraska wins this by 2 scores.
Agreed.
I think, despite the opponent you're playing, I think, what happened Saturday probably still leaves a sour taste in those guys' mouth, knowing that they could have won that game and should have won that game, just given what Ohio State was going to give you. I think they're going to come out and play pissed off championship football again. And Rule addressed that today too. He kind of mentioned it briefly. It's like, I think these, the Indiana, referring to the Indiana game, I think they were kind of like logo hunting in terms of, you play to the logo of the team and not how good the caliber of the team is. So once you get over that mindset of, you're not playing the logo, you're playing the caliber of the team, then you can go out, then you can go kick a 2-5 UCLA team. What we had talked about, they should have beat Purdue by 30 plus if that first half didn't happen. But yeah, I think the offense does finally start to figure it out, and it's their first home game in a month.
I was going to say that was going to be a key point in my.
That's the biggest advantage is you're finally back home after a month of having a bye week and 2 road games. So it's going to be good to get back to your home crowd. Finally go bowling in front of your home fans, get that energy, get the stadium behind you again. So Nebraska gets it done.
All right, Jett. This is your first time having to pick a Nebraska score because the last time it was a bye week. So,
well,
what you got?
31-10. As much as I would love to hop on that train, I think it's a little high for me. I was thinking more along the lines of like 24-14, maybe 28-14.
Okay.
I don't know what UCLA has. I'm going to start with that, but just from what I've seen from Nebraska recently is just like we get out in the lead, and if we get a big lead to start, we kind of coast, which I don't like, but we kind of do. And I kind of feel like that's how it's going to go. Like first half, we come out just pumping, throwing the ball, running the ball, perfect. And then Satterfield's going to get into his quote bag and throw screen passes and run up the fucking middle again. So I could see a 24-14 ending personally.
Mhm.
So 24-14 ones you're sticking with?
Yeah, that's going to be my go-to.
I like it. Yeah, no, I think you guys have pretty well hit the nail on the head. First home game for the Huskers in a while, so that's going to be huge. Getting back in front of the Husker faithful, especially coming off of a loss. Well, coming off of 2 losses, especially the way they both went, but coming off of a loss to the number 4 in the country, Nebraska knows what they are now. Nebraska knows what they can play to. They didn't get it done last week. They're about to prove that they could have gotten it done this week. I agree. However, I do kind of agree with Jett where it seems like I think we have a really, really good first half. We have a really strong first half showing. We get her done. And then the back half is maybe not so conservative necessarily, but more to the effect of just killing clock, just trying to get it done. So I'm going to bring out an old fan favorite and and going to run it back. I'm going to agree with you on the 10.
Spears by 90s.
Actually, you know what? Oh, close. I was about to be a 28-10 and be like, call back to Colorado. But you know what? I think I'm going to go with a 28-14. I think it's going to be one of those where I think Nebraska's going to get out really, really good in the beginning, and then they're going to play, I'll call it safe. And then I think there's going to be like a garbage time touchdown.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be close in that first quarter where it's like, we're kind of feeling out what UCLA does. But that was actually, nope, I'm not going to say it because I'm not going to jinx it because you fade me on your picks. So I'm not going to say it. But
Correct.
Yeah, I think I do firmly hope that we see Nebraska is bowl eligible after this weekend. God,
I sure hope so, man.
Weekend.
Be a fun talk next week.
Yeah, and kind of like you said to your point about other college football, not really a whole lot else that happened.
I'm ready
so before we get to the picks, we got to fire somebody into the sun. We're all going to agree on Satterfield. Sorry. We gotta have one more.
I know mine.
I'll take mine real quick then. Oh, Jett knows his. Go for his.
I mean, if anybody listened to the NFL segment, it's gonna be Dennis Allen.
That's
fair. Yeah,
he's gotta go. He's gotta go. I just don't think he's our answer. I said before that I didn't know who I want in, but after Andy got back, I'd like to have Sean Payton back, you know. He had something figured out.
So would Alvin Kamara, apparently.
I mean, he kind of left shortly after Breeze left, so I don't know if he could get that dynasty QB that he's looking for, but I just don't think Dennis Allen's our pick. And with that, at least our OC, I think our DC is fine, but our offensive coordinator can probably go with them too. So fire them both up to that solar fucking sun up there, you know, have a good trip. I don't care what you do, but get off the Saints, please, for my sake.
I would say Garrett McGuire too.
That was gonna be my pick.
There's something that's just off with the receivers that aren't Ja'Cory Barney or like Jalen Lloyd. And I don't know why it's got to be Banks or Nair, your 2 top transfer guys that you got to come in. Isaiah's been okay in terms of like being a receiver, and in terms of catching, but Banks just the past like 2 to 3 games has obviously struggled with getting blocks, setting blocks, and both Banks and Nair are just having tough time like getting separation too. In terms of running the right routes, creating space, getting separation, which is why, I mean, we've seen more Ja'Cory, more Jalen, more Fedoni in the passing game. I don't know if Dylan just trusts them more right now over, your 2 transfer guys, but there's something going on within that room that I can't quite figure out exactly what is at fault or who's to blame. But if I just had to generally encompass it, I'm just going to say Garrett McGuire right now because the perimeter blocking by your receivers is trash. And that's what I assume. That's who I assume is coaching it. It has to be him. I don't know who else it would be.
Yeah, that seems fair. For me, I'm gonna say the ESPN broadcasters because I'm tired of hearing about LeBron and Bronny. So we can let it go. It's time to that was cool. Let's let it go. It's been long enough. No, I was gonna say Garrett McGuire was gonna be my pick too, but
yeah,
I didn't have anybody else lined up beyond that, so you took my spot. So
well, that's all right.
How about this?
All right.
The Yankees bullpen for not making this as exciting. So
yeah, I mean, I'm not
All
upset
right.
about it, but like, yeah, it could have been a more exciting series.
Yeah, so far.
So far.
All right, well, let's get to our picks, and we're gonna start with we've as of right now we've got a better name than we had before. Thanks to Nathan, who's not on, but he decided to text us and be like, "Hey, I got my picks." But as of this week, we're gonna start calling them. He called his lock and then his bold pick. But we're gonna, since we're sports balls, we're gonna add sports in front of those. So we're gonna have sports bold and sports lock. So, I'm waiting for Nate. He needs to confirm something for me on his pick, but we'll start with Jett's sports lock of the week, and we'll go around. What you got?
Ooh, my sports lock for the week. Well, I guess I really ain't got one, but one out of the air that I can grab is I think the Saints are gonna pull it together against the Panthers. I hope to God they can because they should. But I think we win that game by fucking 3. Probably.
That one seems like a fair lock.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be my lock pick.
My logic for like most of this NFL season is like bet against the Saints and bet against the Panthers. Doesn't help that they're not both playing each other this week. So
yeah,
which one? And the same with the Patriots and the Titans also played this week together. So it's like you can't pick one of them either because they're both bad, but they're all playing each other. So somebody in theory should win. I'm gonna say my lock, Zach, Eagles over the Jags. I think
I was going to say that. I'm like, that's homer pick. I can't do that.
It is, and I mean, I did it last week too with the Broncos over the Panthers. I mean, that was a homer pick, and it worked out. But I think the way that your offense has played the past couple of weeks, it's at home. Jacksonville just lost Christian Kirk and Brian Wilson. Kirk's out for the season. Wilson's probably out for the next couple of weeks. So
yeah,
the Jags are losing a lot of their offensive pieces right now that aren't Evan Ingram or their running backs. So I think offensively they took a hit, and as long as nothing happens with the Eagles this week in terms of injury report, I mean that should be a lock at win at home. I would hope, but that's my pick.
So. Well, but Eagles have also been known to play down in competition a bit, so
right.
I hope you're right, but
yes.
I do think they pull out the win. All right, my sports lock of the week. I don't know. This one seems kind of cheating, but that's why it's a lock. Give me Oregon at 14.5 over Michigan. I know it's at Michigan, but
it's going to be Oregon's going to cover that and more.
Oregon looks unstoppable.
I said I think I said at the beginning of the year I picked them to win the championship, and they're just not just the Big Ten, but I think the college football. I mean, nothing about who they have played besides Ohio State has told me otherwise that they will not get to at least the semifinals or the championship at this point. They look unstoppable right now, and depending on who they play in the Big Ten championship between probably Indiana, Penn State, or Ohio State again, they look unstoppable. But yeah, I also was going to say that I thought Oregon was going to smash that 14. And I mean, it's at 14.5 right now, and I think Oregon's going to cover that more.
Yeah, I was going to say like a 15 point. I mean, 14.5 is the spread, obviously, but 15 points. Michigan hasn't looked the same. Oregon looks unstoppable. I don't even care that it's in. I don't even care that it's in the big house at this point.
Right.
It's that's to me my lock. So we'll also we're gonna make a cool little transition here where we're gonna give the sports lock for Nathan this week.
Yes.
He texted us and said, "Hey, I got my picks." So his sports lock of the week is that the Broncos cover over who do they play?
Ravens.
Oh, so he's saying that they're going to cover
The 9.
the 9-point spread. I like it.
And that might go up by the time this comes out on Sunday, or it might go down. But
I was going to say, but he's taking it at 9 according to this. So
yeah.
All right, that's his sports lock of the week, and then we'll transition into the sports bold pick of the week for us.
Yes.
And so we'll use Nate's as first. At first, he was going to be Minnesota over Illinois, but Minnesota is favored in that game, oddly enough. So he switched.
Minnesota just thrashed Maryland. No,
Maryland's
not that good either.
Yeah, I do question why Minnesota is fully favored, but I guess
right.
Maybe Illinois is finally regressing to the mean, but so he then took on that Pitt will beat SMU, which is another example of a weird one where Pittsburgh is ranked 18 and SMU is ranked 20, and SMU is favored by 7.5. So that'll be an interesting game. Pitt is very good this year.
I've got a bold pick if Jett doesn't have one yet.
Nah, go for it. I still do. Go for it.
Ohio State wins. I think they go into Happy Valley and they win. And that's a game that I would generally avoid because it's a top 4 matchup between Ohio State and Penn State this weekend.
Now this is just ESPN, but they're favored by 3.5 though.
Yeah, obviously you take an undefeated Penn State team at home, you're like, oh yeah, especially how Ohio State played last week. I think they're going to come out and learn how they played against Nebraska and Oregon. I think they are too talented right now to not win these games. And Penn State didn't. I don't know what's up with Drew Aller. He didn't play like the second half against Wisconsin, so I don't know if he's hurt or what. He was on the sideline with like a towel on his head the entire second half, and Penn State still beat Wisconsin. But my bold pick is Ohio State goes into Happy Valley, and I don't think they kick Penn State, but I think they win convincingly enough to convince voters that they should still be a top 5 team. Despite I thought they were going to drop after they played us, just seeing how voters were like, oh, they didn't win that by that much. But I think Ohio State wins, despite Penn State being undefeated at home.
I like it. That is a bold pick.
And
even if the line doesn't say that.
Yeah, I generally would stay away from top ranked games like this because it literally could go both ways. But Ohio State's too talented to not go in and win these games. I mean, Jeremiah Smith's a freshman, and he is everything that Ohio State wants and the NFL wants in an NFL wide receiver.
I like that. Jett, you got one, or are you still looking?
No, I got one. I don't know if it's really a bold pick. It's bold by ESPN betting odds, but to me, I don't think this is really a bold pick. I got Houston over New York. They got New York Jets by or they got it winning. They got the Jets winning, and they have not proven enough to me to think that they got it,
I think it's only because the Jets are at home. That's
even then though, tickets as low as $20, that shows me enough that it's really not
probably there to watch the Texans anyways.
Exactly. If you're buying it, you probably got a CJ Stroud jersey on. So
I know I would.
I'm gonna say Houston by probably 10 points. I could see him 7-10 points.
I don't outright. I love it.
Genuinely don't know how New York's favored with how they've been playing. They just have not proven it to me.
Right.
Love that. And that's kind of, I think that's basically what Nate was going for too with his Minnesota. Because I agreed with him. I was like, yeah, that is kind of a bold pick where Minnesota is going to beat Illinois. But then Minnesota's favored by 3 points. Was like, what? I could see them being a split line if it was a home. But that's the other thing too. I think that game's I think that's a like Minnesota is going to, they're going to Illinois and they're still favored by 3. I was like, what? But yeah, in this case, I guess see the Jets having it, but all right. And then for my okay, so I don't know, you guys might like this. For my sports bold pick of the week, Kansas City is favored by 8.5 points against Tampa Bay.
Saying Tampa's going to win or Tampa will cover?
Tampa's going to cover. I think
Okay.
Tampa's going to cover. I don't think they win. I think they keep it close.
See that?
I mean, there is a world where I think they could win. Baker has been playing fairly well for the most part. Last couple games, not so much.
Despite losing his top 2 receivers.
Just, ooh.
Yeah.
I somehow had.
I mean, they almost did beat the Falcons despite all of that.
I mean, a good quarterback can raise up the rest of the team. And I mean, it sucks not having Mike.
Yeah.
and it does suck not having Mike Evans, but I don't necessarily think Chris Godwin was lighting up the field up until the last couple games either. So
that was a tough injury to watch. So
yes, it was.
Go on.
But I'm sticking with it. I'm sticking with my gut.
Okay.
I think Baker elevates the team to cover against Kansas City. I don't necessarily know if they win outright, but I think they cover and keep it close. So that's my pick.
I like it.
All right. We don't have anything else. That might be all for our picks.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't have anything else. The worst part is like betting lines for like hockey don't come out, and like basketball is also on like it's a couple days before. So
right.
I could make a pick, but by the time this comes out, that pick is already worthless. So it's like we got to make the pick for when it comes out after Friday, but we can't do that on a Monday when we're recording. So
I was gonna bet on the Jets, but they lost tonight as we're recording this, so they are not undefeated anymore. By the way,
and as we're recording, I think the Dodgers are down to 2 outs.
They're up. Well, they're down to 2 outs. I was like, what? They're winning.
Woo!
No. So they're in the top of the 9th right now. So the Yankees have 3 more outs before they lose game 3.
Right on. Well,
yeah.
Once again, want to extend a thank you to Jett for coming on.
Yeah,
at this rate, we might have to make this a 4-person podcast. We'll see how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
Got to talk to the boss. Got to talk to the guy in charge. So, but he's not here. So
this was fun. Not opposed.
But we'll see how that goes. See if the fans agree. But anything else for sign off?
That's about it. Scores by 90 as always.
Glad we're all in agreement.
We know.
That's right. Well, give it one more round. Want to thank Andy. Want to thank Jett, and then I have been Zach for your host this episode, and we thank you once again for tuning in to the Sportsball Podcast, the #1 sports podcast on the internet. Don't fact check it, and we will stay here for your source for sports.